It is 10 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. NFL owners voted on rule changes this morning as owners' meetings continue in West Palm Beach, and a change of overtime rules was passed that will allow both teams to possess the ball in an OT period during the regular season. They've also voted to expand replay assist, helping officials on plays where flags are thrown, unintentional grounding, roughing the passer, and runners hit out of bounds. And the discussion for banning the tush push was tabled. It will not be voted on this week. The Final Four in the women's NCAA tournament is set. Texas will play South Carolina on Friday for a spot in the national title game. UConn and UCLA face off on the other side. And Belmont women's basketball moved on to the WBIT championship with a 66-57 win over Villanova on Monday. They will play Minnesota in the championship in Indianapolis tomorrow. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Good morning. Happy Tuesday to everybody. Much to discuss. We've got rule changes as owners' meetings continue in West Palm Beach. We've got a chat with the Titans general manager about the number one overall pick and a discussion about potentially the QB domino before the draft that we're not talking about. With you until 1 o'clock. I'm Lucas Panzica. Robert Walsh and I with you until 1. Another day of the Buck Rising Show with no Buck Rising. We are, of course, fueled by Hattie B's, the best hot chicken in the world. Coming right off National Hot Chicken Day on Sunday. Hope a lot of you got to celebrate at any one of Hattie B's 7 Middle Tennessee locations. So the show is not completely without Buck. He will chime in at 11:20 from West Palm Beach. We'll talk about everything that NFL owners voted on earlier this morning because there are a few developments. Now, we'll start with the headline that I think kind of hovered above this entire week, and that's the tush push. Whether or not that would be banned, a proposal submitted by the Green Bay Packers. And the answer to that for now is it will not be banned this week at owners' meetings. That discussion has been tabled, so it could be voted on again in May. But for right now, the tush push remains legal in the NFL. And Robert, it sounds like things got contentious in this discussion. So 16 NFL teams voted to ban the tush push. That is 8 short of the amount needed for the proposal to pass. That is reporting by Jordan Schultz of Fox. And then Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated kind of gave us a look inside the room with these discussions. He says Philadelphia GM Howie Roseman defended the play, asking the room for the injury data, showing that the concept was creating player safety issue. Then he asked for the stats that show it to be demonstrably more dangerous than a conventional QB sneak. NFL Chief Medical Officer Alan Sills returned volley, according to Albert Breer, saying that while there haven't been a preponderance of injuries on the play, the league's feeling was that when an injury does eventually happen on it, based on the player's posture, it could be catastrophic. And then there's reporting about Jim Harbaugh and Mike Vrabel jumping in on the discussion. A very contentious topic down there this week.
Yeah, it seems like they're split right down the middle almost, 16 teams for, 16 teams against. I wonder what would have to happen to knock that flow up. What would have to happen to bring the 8 necessary votes to the other side? I can assume, and I can only guess, 3 teams that would be against the tush push. It would probably be Dallas, Washington, and New York. Those are the teams that I can 100% say, yeah, we're tired of this. Can you just take this out of here?
Yeah, having to see it twice a year, I'm sure. I mean, that is an interesting sort of debate point, that there's not necessarily evidence to show that players are getting injured more on this play, but that you have the NFL's chief medical officer saying, but if they do get injured on this play, based on their posture, it could be catastrophic. Who does the tush push like the Eagles do in the NFL? Nobody, right? Like, if it was this unstoppable play that just creates an unfair advantage for the offense every time, more teams would be doing it. The Eagles feel like the only team absolutely equipped to run this play. Buffalo has run a version of this play, sometimes with success, sometimes without, but nobody does it like the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's where I have a hard time saying this play is unfair, this play is unsafe, when there's not necessarily a rate of injuries that you can directly tie to the play, and there's only one team doing it with that level of success. So, end of the day, I doubt the tush push will be banned for the 2025 season. But we do have some rule changes to talk about, including probably the biggest one from this morning. Overtime will be different in 2025, and we will see the rules that started to apply to playoff games after that classic Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes matchup where they were dueling it out, going back and forth, and Josh Allen didn't get to touch the ball in overtime. Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs moving on a couple years ago. That now has been added into regular season overtime matchups. Both teams will get the ball in the 10-minute overtime period. I think we can all agree this was a necessary change, right? Is anybody going to be upset about this? We put it to a poll just in case. At Lucas Banzica is where you can vote. Do you like the overtime rule change where both teams get the ball? But surely nobody can complain about this, right? This is what we've wanted.
Yeah, I don't see a big issue with this. My big issue is why don't they just do what they do in college? College overtime is so much more exciting. You get so many more scores. I would just prefer them to go to that instead of having to do a long, drawn-out, all right, let's start a brand-new game. Like, no, the overtime should be different from the game. It should be a different scenario. We did that for 4 quarters. Let's just do what they do in college. Start from the 25 and in, alternate 2-point conversions. That makes sense to me. And then that way we could potentially see 100 to 100 in the NFL.
I hate the 2-point conversions. I
come
hate
on.
You like the alternating 2-point conversions?
There needs to be a step up in difficulty.
I mean, there is, though. If you score a touchdown, you had, in the previous format, once you got into the third overtime, if you scored a touchdown, then you had to go for 2. And a lot of games were decided on that 2-point conversion. Man, after watching that Georgia Tech game last year where Kirby Smart's taking a timeout in every overtime, like 32 overtimes? That's an exaggeration. But
right.
Okay, that got changed because of one game, the LSU Texas A&M game in the 2018 season. The scoring was in the 70s, right? Like literally 7 or 8 overtimes. I mean, it's Joe Burrow on one side for LSU. I think, Kellen Mond on the other for Texas A&M. Remember Kellen Mond for the Aggies? Just going back and forth, and I think it went into 7 or 8 OTs, and then the NCAA decided after that, okay, that's just not good for player safety. We're going to make the dueling 2-point conversions. And I hate it. I miss that overtime format of starting on the 25, and then once the third overtime period comes around, then you got to go for 2 if you score a touchdown. It is the one thing college football has nailed, and then they messed it up in my mind with the do it. What do you like about the 2-point conversions?
I like the points.
You can still have points.
Sure, but it's a different game. It's a different, you know what I mean? Like, okay, first down, second down, third down to score. But from the 2, like there's a million different plays that you would never call in a game except for a 2-point conversion. Like, you really get to see the offensive coordinator's creativity. You get to see personnel creativity. I enjoy 2-point conversion plays. Generally in the NFL, I feel like you see a lot of standard plays. There's not a lot of creativity on that. And in college, and if this rule was instituted in the NFL, you would have to see that. You would have to have a lot of 2-point conversion plays that are like, oh, wow, we've never seen that before.
It's like the NFL version of a penalty shootout. Is what it feels like.
I would love that.
And I do love a good penalty shootout. I'll give you that.
Can you just imagine NFL defenses, like, after having to play a full game, and then, like, it's the 8th overtime, Joe Burrow just threw for his 9th touchdown. Like,
please make it stop.
Please. People are just laying down, like, okay, we'll take the loss. We've played the equivalent of an extra game by being in overtime this long.
I am alone in this. I know that, and that's okay. But I never want the NFL to go that route. I'm with you. I like the college format, because I think it is by far the most fair overtime format.
It's like a knuckle-cracking moment. Like, have you ever watched Dragon Ball Z when they're like, oh, yeah, fight's about to start? That's what overtime feels like in college to me. Like, it's ramping up. In the NFL, it's just sweating bullets. It's like, okay, who makes the first mistake? Whoever makes a mistake loses. Like,
Exactly. But what I never want to go away is there being a clock in overtime, and that if the game ends in a tie, it's a tie. You know me. I'm a huge fan of the tie. I think it is the most fair result in all of sports. Nobody likes a tie. Everybody thinks it's a participation trophy, because nobody wins and nobody loses, but oftentimes it is the fairest result. You don't get to win. You don't get to win. Take this extra mark on your record. You are now 3-1-1 and go home, and may God have mercy on your soul. I'm a big fan of ties in the NFL. I hope they never go away.
And they did push extending overtime to being a 15-minute period. They remain leaving it at 10 minutes.
Right. So there are other rule changes to talk about. In fact, Ian Rappaport kind of highlighted everything that would be discussed on NFL Network. 615-737-1045 is how you chime in. Also on 1045 The Zone TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. This was Rap Sheet talking about the rule changes being discussed this week at owners' meetings.
Another topic that is going to be discussed tomorrow, the potential expansion of replay assist. And what that is the officials in New York getting in the ears of the referees on the field and essentially fixing egregious fouls. Not that one, but fixing egregious fouls that we can all obviously see. Not going to put down new flags. It would be a flag that already existed. Basically fixing a replay before it happened. We saw it a ton toward the end of the year. Expect that to increase. And then the competition committee and the NFL owners are also going to consider a proposal, Tom, from the Detroit Lions to do away with the automatic first downs related to defensive holding. We will see where that ends up, but obviously the tush-push conversation that Mike so expertly navigated is going to be the biggest headline.
So a couple of those have been addressed. As we told you, the tush-push is being tabled, so there will not be a final vote on that until at the earliest May. Now, we mentioned the overtime rule. Replay assist is expanding in the NFL. This is from Jonathan Jones of CBS. Starting next season, the NFL will expand its replay assist to include helping officials on plays where flags were thrown, unintentional grounding, roughing the passer, and runner hit out of bounds. Replay assist will only be used when the flag has already been thrown. So, in other words, replay assist cannot retroactively throw a flag. If they watch a play and they see that, it should have been roughing the passer, it wasn't called, they cannot ring the officials on the field and say, no, you need to throw a flag on that play. But a flag can be picked up. Everybody is celebrating this, and it's great. More eyeballs, more help for the officials is great. But we also kind of did this, Robert, I think, with pass interference. And maybe that's just a totally different thing. But the NFL made it to where that was a reviewable play, right? You could challenge pass interference in the NFL. And then a season went by, and the percentage of pass interference calls that were reviewed and reversed was microscopic, to the point where they went back and reversed that rule change. It is no longer a reviewable play because it just never happened. So that's my question. How often actually is replay assist going to come down and tell officials to pick up a flag? Like, especially for, let's say, roughing the passer. There are so many roughing the passer penalties that the offending team or the team that, the penalty is called on believes is egregious, but in reality is just on the line, right? Like, there's a lot of debate with these calls. So when we're talking about needing clear and obvious as the metric, the standard to pick up a flag, I am skeptical on how often that is actually going to happen with replay assist.
I feel like the only reason it got proposed was the Sam Darnold face mask that was missed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That where, this was so egregious and it ended a game. That's the only time that I would really want this instituted is at the end of a game. This needs to be coming in to save something that was a game-breaking decision, not something that's an irrelevant third quarter, third down. Actually, it wasn't a pass. Pick that flag up. Like, I don't care about that. Let the game play out as it is. Human error is part of the game, part of every game. But in situations like the Sam Darnold, potentially in the Saints-Rams pass interference, no call, like situations like that, I could be okay with instituting. But I am generally less outside power. I want the people calling the game, and if they call it incorrectly, so be it. If it's a crappy call, it is what it is. But I do not like the New York interference. That bothers me.
Really? See, I like the eye in the sky aspect. I think of it as, especially right now with the NCAA tournament going on, we'll be sitting there watching a game, and there is a consequential play with a minute to go where the ball, two players are going for the ball, and it goes out on one of them. It's called out of bounds. The referee points in one direction. Obviously, you got to review it at that point when it's that close. And then they immediately start showing the replay on TV. And you at home are sitting there, and sometimes it's obvious. You can see it. It's, okay, that's out on Texas. It's Tennessee ball or whatever. And then about 30 seconds after that is when the referee walks up to the sideline and talks into the microphone and says, ruling on the court is Texas ball. The previous play is under review. And I'm like, dude, I've seen the replay already 5 times. I already know whose ball it is. And now we're going to sit here for another 40, 45 seconds as you try to figure it out. Like anything that can make it just turnkey, snap of a finger, somebody watching it and having seen the replay before the referee even has time to make his way over to the bench and says, nope, we know what it is. Let's keep it moving. I am in favor of something like that at the NFL level. And I'm with you on the face mask thing because that's a clear one, right? Either he grabbed the face mask or he didn't. And that play that you're talking about, Byron Young, I believe it was, very much got into the face mask of Sam Darnold. That is an example where replay assist could have swept in and the Vikings would have still had a chance to drive down the field and win that game.
Okay, if they're going to do that, then they need to do it for both offensive and defensive penalties.
Sure.
When offensive linemen get called for holds, someone needs to be evaluating these holds because something like they always say holds happen in every game, right? Holds are going to get called, not going to get called. But sometimes if they're called, I just think it should be both sides of the ball. If you're going to do this and do the robot officiating, then just get rid of referees altogether. Just have someone in the sky do it. Put all of them in booths with cameras on every section they're supposed to be in. Why are they down on the field anyway? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. If you're going to robot it, then just robot it fully.
There are other rule changes to talk about that were being voted on this morning in West Palm Beach. We will take your phone call, 615-737-1045, and the last pre-draft QB domino that we might not be talking about. We'll do that next on 1045 The Zone. Rule changes for the upcoming season, a lot being voted on down in West Palm Beach, including overtime rules changing in the NFL. As we said, both teams will get the ball at least once in the 10-minute period. I mentioned in the last segment, keep the 10-minute period. Keep the possibility of ties open in the NFL. I'm alone in this, but I also just love the feeling of dread that descends upon two fan bases when there's 2 minutes left in overtime and nobody scored. Because nobody wants to be a fan of the team that ends up with the tie, right? It might happen to two teams all season, but I appreciate it. I think it adds a level of intrigue. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We are fueled, of course, by Hattie B's Hot Chicken, the best hot chicken in the world. Check out any one of their 7 Middle Tennessee locations. Go to HattieB.com and download the Hattie B's app for pickup or delivery. By the way, you get a free dessert just by downloading the app. Start to build up those rewards. Try the peach cobbler. Trust me on that one. So, we mentioned replay assist, the overtime rule, and the tush push being tabled. There is another thing being discussed this week, and that is the touchbacks and what constitutes a touchback with the new kickoff format. The NFL is moving the ball up to the 35 if a kickoff team kicks it out of bounds for a touchback. Last year, it was 30. They obviously are trying to offer some incentive for teams to take the ball out of the end zone. Now, we went into this last year, and a lot of people around the NFL, smart people, whether it's media, analysts, I remember Mike Keith and Coach Mack saying this about the new kickoff rule, that the touchback being moved up to the 30 isn't going to change anything. Folks are still just going to kick it out of the back of the end zone, especially in the first year of the new kickoff rule when you're still kind of trying to figure out how to defend it. Special teams coordinator, it's all very new to them. Teams are just going to kick it out of the back of the end zone. It might not yield the results the NFL wants it to yield. And I do think the data showed that more exciting plays did come out of the new kickoff format, but end of the day, most of the time, teams were just booting it out of the back of the end zone. So do you think, Robert, that moving the touchback up to the 35 will change anything about that?
I do. I think that it will lead to more returns than we saw last year. So I saw the statistic after that news came out from Kevin Seifert at ESPN. He says, with this touchback spot change, the NFL is projecting an increase in return rate from 33% in 2024 to between 60 and 70% in 2025. There are some downstream aspects that could come into play in terms of field positioning, scoring, game managing when you add that to that many plays. So if they're able to essentially double the number of returns that happened, I would be down for that. Because when this was proposed, I was excited about it. It's a new element to the game, right? It's not really a return as much as it is a run game and players in space and trying to figure out the best way for different blocking schemes, things like that. So I enjoy this in theory. Now, if they aren't able to get any more of these returns to actually happen, teams are like, what's 5 yards? Like we were talking about it before, and I don't know if this also changed, but if you kick it out of bounds, you start on the 45. Is that the same? So 10 yards further, it's kicking out of bounds. I can see where teams say, hell with it. Just let them have it at the 35.
Yeah.
What do I care? So I do think it will lead to more returns, but I also think teams with good defenses are still going to go, I trust my defense in this situation.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. It could lead to more returns, but I feel like those numbers will be marginal at best. But we'll see.
It's also going to raise the value of kickers who are no longer – it's not just going to be about booting it out of the back of the end zone. It's not just strictly power kicks the whole game, which kind of affect – there's a research ESPN's doing right now with if that affects field goal percentages. Kickers that just kick it out of the back of the end zone, are you using so much of your power that it's affecting you kicking field goals later in games? But you're going to have to be a better directional kicker. You're going to know where to place it because it's a split field return. There have to be 2 players back. So figuring out which player you want to kick to, how you want to kick them, where you want the ball to go, all of that is the strategy that I think will advance this next year.
Interesting. And then you have this idea that we could be seeing a change to playoff seeding. There is a proposal by the Detroit Lions to change the playoff seeding format to where it's not necessarily restricted to divisions the way it has been. Exhibit A was the regular season finale last year. In the NFC North, Vikings and Lions, two 14-win teams, battling it out for a divisional title and home field advantage in the playoff, and the 1 seed in the NFC. So the Lions are the team that actually won that game, but they're the ones submitting this proposal to where playoff seeding is not restricted to division. So, in the case of last year, the Minnesota Vikings, even though they lost that regular season finale and did not technically win their division, by nature of having a better record than the Los Angeles Rams, who were a division champion, the Vikings would have been a home team in the playoffs, not the Rams, because they had a better record and they just happened to be in a division with the number 1 seed in the NFC. Do you see this taking shape at all? Any sort of changes to playoff seeding? Because I don't.
Yeah, I think it's so stupid. It just devalues winning the division. Like when we talked about this yesterday, 99.9% of the time, this seeding knocks it out of the park, and it's exactly what it should be. But the big thing that I would, as a fan, hate about this is it would almost eliminate divisional matchups in wildcard games. Because then if you have, say, the Steelers have a better record than the 4th-seeded division winner, and they would not go to Baltimore. They would not go to Cincinnati, whoever won the division in the wildcard round. They would have to play through to the semis to then potentially play that. So I like those first-round divisional wildcard matchups, but this is so stupid to me. It devalues winning your division. It essentially devalues the regular season outside of just stacking up wins, winning inside of your conference. I am not for this, and I don't really see the reasoning as why the Lions would feel so passionately about this that they would have to come out and offer it as a rule change.
Yeah, it also just doesn't happen that often. How many times do we see two teams at that level, 13, 14 wins, playing the division championship game at the end of the season? It's not that often that it happens. So let's not make rule changes based on a standalone situation. Just like we're talking about with the college football overtime. I hate that college football instituted the dueling 2-point conversions because of one game, one time where Texas A&M and LSU scored into the 70s. And I get it, player safety, and you don't want players playing in 5-6 hour football games. I understand that. But it was one time that we saw an instance of that. So, yeah, I don't think we should be overhauling our playoff seeding format in the NFL based on one situation at the end of the regular season last year in the NFC North. Not to mention, it made that game as high stakes as it could possibly be. It doesn't get better than that, right? In a regular season finale. I suppose the only thing that could be better is if you're literally playing for your playoff life, right? Like, we've seen that with the Titans in recent years, playing an AFC South championship game against the Jags, regular season finale. The winner wins the division, hosts in the first round. The loser is out of the playoffs. Saw that a couple years ago in Jacksonville. That is essentially a playoff game. That adds a level of intrigue. But in terms of two of the best teams in the NFL going head-to-head in the same division, the stakes of the loser having to be relegated to a wild card spot despite a 14-win season is just another reason to turn on the game to me. So I'd be very surprised if this took shape. Not to mention the Lions, even though they were the ones to benefit last year, they won that game. They got the 1 seed. I get where they're going with this because that could take shape again. If J.J. McCarthy hits for the Vikings, we could get into that type of situation. The NFC North is probably going to be particularly strong again, but still, I don't think it should shape the entirety of playoff seeding in the NFL. I'm also in the minority on this. I enjoy seeing 8 and 9 teams win bad divisions and host playoff games. Like, that adds a level of intrigue to me as well. I know not everybody agrees with that. There is one QB domino before the NFL draft that we're not talking about that could fall and impact some things. Now, you might be thinking of Aaron Rodgers when I say that. Robert, did you see the video going around of Aaron Rodgers working out with DK Metcalf?
I missed it.
On UCLA's campus?
2 peak athletic specimens.
That's right. They are on the West Coast working out together. Everybody is sitting around assuming that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. They certainly seem to be in the driver's seat. And to be honest, it seems like the only option for him at this point. So Aaron Rodgers is going to do Aaron Rodgers things on Aaron Rodgers' own timeline. So no idea when something is going to come down in regards to news about Rodgers. But the guy we're not talking about in all of this is Kirk Cousins. Now, the Falcons have made it clear at every turn they like Kirk Cousins. They want him to remain in Atlanta. They want him to remain as the backup quarterback behind Michael Penix Jr. Raheem Morris spoke this morning at owners' meetings and said Kirk Cousins has made him and others aware that he would like to be a starter. Morris, of course, the Falcons head coach, leading to the thought that Cousins would be very willing to waive his no-trade clause. Morris said they have not reached a point where those discussions have materialized with Kirk Cousins. He also added that he would not be surprised if Cousins stayed away from voluntary offseason workouts. Is a Kirk Cousins trade the QB domino we're not talking about that could affect things at the top of the NFL draft? Whether that's to Cleveland, we have no reason to bring that up for Tennessee, right? That's been no part of the discussion with the Titans. But they're sitting up there with the number 1 pick, and according to them, evaluating every single option that's in front of them right now. This was Ian Rappaport the other day on NFL Network talking about the possibility of the Browns maybe being in on Kirk Cousins.
When Myles Garrett talks about the quarterback position, that is meaningful, that is significant. And the reason I say that, of course, is Myles Garrett very famously asked the Browns to trade him early in the offseason, ended up coming back, listening to the team's pitch, listen to their explanation, plus $40 million per year also helped, but listen to their explanation about how they're going to get back to being competitive. When he speaks about them drafting a young quarterback and being willing to let this quarterback learn, this sounds like someone who's heard exactly that from Cleveland Browns brass. That is why when Myles Garrett talks about them taking a quarterback, a rookie quarterback, I would say this, I would listen. Now, is it going to be at 2? We don't know. Is it going to be in the second round or trade up early in the we don't know, but it certainly does seem like that potentially could be the case. The Kirk Cousins factor here is fascinating as well because the Browns have been mentioned as one of the teams that's maybe been interested in Kirk Cousins. But here's what I would say on Kirk Cousins. Obviously, has the huge contract. He has $100 million guaranteed by the Atlanta Falcons over a couple years. I believe it's 90 fully over the first 2 years of his deal. The new team acquiring the contract is not going to pay that. Forget that number. That's not important. The Falcons are already on the hook for that. The question is, if you're a new team acquiring Cousins, and the Browns certainly would make sense, as would a couple other teams, what the Falcons are going to try to get you to do is take some of it. How much? Is it $20 million? Is it 10? Is it 5? How much the new team pays will obviously affect what draft pick they're willing to send the Falcons for Cousins. It's sort of a sliding scale. We don't even know right now if the Falcons end up trading him, but the actual money on the contract doesn't matter. It's just how much is the new team willing to take on.
All right, that is Ian Rappaport on NFL Network talking about the idea of Kirk Cousins getting traded from Atlanta.
Doesn't this just feel like a stalemate to you? Like, doesn't it just feel like there's only one obvious spot that Kirk could go to as he wants to be a starter? Like, everyone else has already hitched their wagon. The Jets have Justin Fields. The Giants have a quarterback room full of Kirk Cousins. No one needs a Kirk Cousins at this time. The Raiders traded for Geno Smith. Like, any of the quarterback-needy teams found a way to find someone outside of Cleveland. They went out and traded for Kenny Pickett, but I don't think that makes a huge difference in this. So the stalemate's going to be, how much does Cleveland want to take on of Kirk Cousins' money when they're already divulging so much money to Deshaun Watson's deal? And how much of this plays into Myles Garrett's concern about adding, and we listened to the audio yesterday, we can play it again here, about adding a young quarterback. All that does is muddy the room. So now you're going to have 3 guys, if you add a rookie, 4 guys in the same room who all are trying to be starters. It makes very little sense to me why Cleveland would give up a high pick. This seems like a late pick swap to take very little money for Kirk to go to Cleveland.
And then there's this from Bill Barnwell of ESPN. He puts out a mock draft. Now, it is a 2025 first-round mock draft with all trades. Okay, so it's just a little exercise from Barnwell. Take that for what it's worth. Literally 1 through 32 involving trades. Here's what he has for the Titans. At number 1 overall, he's got the Titans executing 2 trades. One with the Cleveland Browns to move back to number 2, where, in this scenario, from Barnwell, he says the Titans get the second pick, the Browns' third-round pick, a 2026 second-round pick, and the Titans send, obviously, the first pick and the 2026 sixth-round pick to Cleveland. He's also got, in this same trade, the Titans doing a deal with the Falcons and acquiring Kirk Cousins in exchange for a 2026 seventh rounder. Obviously, the cash considerations, a big part of that. Titans, in this scenario, would be taking on a portion of Kirk Cousins' contract. Barnwell writes, the Titans appear to be leaning towards drafting a quarterback, given their only addition under center this offseason has been veteran Brandon Allen. I add in parentheses, they also added Tim Boyle, but practice, camp arm, practice squad, however you want to put that. Cam Ward seems to have separated himself from Shedeur Sanders, but it's tough to find a consensus in the league that he's anything close to a no-doubt solution. There are superstars available at critical positions elsewhere in this draft, and the Titans are not one player away from competing. What if they're bluffing, he says? What if the Titans aren't sure about Ward and have more confidence in adding Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter? Instead of adding Ward to solve their quarterback problem, what if there's a veteran who could step in under center in the short term while they wait to find a prospect that they like? He says the purpose of bluffing would be to get the Browns to pay up for the privilege of ensuring that they'll get Ward. This played out in 2017 when the Niners had no intention of drafting Mitch Trubisky, and they still convinced the Bears that they were willing to trade the pick to someone else who wanted Trubisky. In that situation, San Fran got 2 third-round picks and a 4th-rounder for moving down to number 3. So, here, in this scenario, the Browns send a 3rd-round pick and their 2nd-rounder in 26 to move up 1 spot, and they get back a 6th-rounder in next year's draft. And, of course, the Titans would get Kirk Cousins. The Falcons would unload their expensive backup to Cousins, and the Cousins would allow them to take a shot on a quarterback who was playing reasonably well before he suffered a midseason shoulder injury. That is from Bill Barnwell. He goes on at some length, and he wraps up saying, is this likely? Of course not. The Titans let backup quarterback Mason Rudolph leave. They signed Draymond Jones to a 1-year deal replacing Harold Landry, which should suggest they're likely targeting Ward at number 1. Even if they were not taking Ward, the Browns might not take the bait, and the Falcons are telling everyone who will listen that they want to keep Kirk Cousins. Barnwell also says, I would be surprised if the Titans traded out of the top spot. I would just be less surprised than just about any other year. So he's just kind of throwing stuff out there. Hey, wouldn't this be interesting? But how would Titans fans feel about that? Trading for Kirk Cousins, taking on a big chunk of that money, getting your veteran quarterback and getting to continue to fill out needs, taking an Abdul Carter or a Travis Hunter, and getting a 3rd-round pick. It's getting some negative responses in the F&M Bank chat where you can hang in, 104.5 The Zone TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Again, there's not really anything to this. It's just Bill Barnwell throwing out scenarios. But, Bert, if you asked me this in October of last year, I would have said, sign me up. I don't care. Sign me up. I know Kirk Cousins hasn't played well recently for the Falcons. He's coming off the Achilles.
400-yard passing game.
Crazy game against the Bucs early in the season. He really fell off after that. Turns out there was an ankle injury involved. He was coming off the Achilles. I would have said, give me the veteran stopgap, fill out the team needs, make it the best roster possible, and then strike while the iron is hot, so to speak, with your young quarterback. Since then, I think I've come around on the idea of drafting Cam Ward. I'm bought in on Cam Ward as the number 1 overall pick. And I'm bought in on the Titans taking a swing on Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. Curtis says, Kirk Cousins is awful now. Rookie QB, please. That would probably be the majority response from the fan base. No, draft the rookie. It's not often you get the number 1 overall pick. The Titans have only had it twice since moving to Tennessee. But it's an interesting scenario thrown out there by Bill Barnwell. I agree with you, though, Robert, that this is something that makes more sense for the Cleveland Browns, who right now have pretty much Kenny Pickett as the favorite to be the starting quarterback, unless they do draft Shedeur Sanders or a Jackson Dart or whoever later on in the draft. So that is the one team that everybody kind of has their eyes on right now in terms of what in the world are they going to do at the quarterback position, especially with those comments from Myles Garrett. Coming up, what made you say, oh no, in sports this week? I believe we have something to give away, Robert.
Yeah, 2 Kane Brown tickets for April.
615-737-1045. The best submission for what made you say, oh no, in sports this week. We'll get a pair of tickets to see Kane Brown live coming up in a couple weeks. We'll be right back with Oh No on 104.5 The Zone. Hey, Lucas Panzica here to tell you about the best hot chicken in the world, Hattie B's, a family-run restaurant that serves up your favorite Southern food and authentic Nashville hot chicken. It's 10:43. We're getting right up to lunchtime. Doors will open at Hattie B's locations across Middle Tennessee in about 15 minutes at 11 a.m. That is the spot for you to go. And you might be thinking, I'm not really feeling hot chicken right now. I don't want any spicy food on this Tuesday for my lunch break. It doesn't have to be. They hand-bread their fried chicken, cooked to order. Add your spice level. Go hot or not with your favorite piece of chicken. You can go from the Southern, which is essentially an excellent piece of fried chicken, all the way up to shut the cluck up, whatever works for you. And they have the best sides in town. The Southern greens, the pimento mac and cheese. You just can't go wrong. If you want to skip the line, order for pickup or delivery, download the Hattie B's app. You get a free dessert just by doing so, or go to HattieB.com. (615-737-1045). Your chance to win a pair of tickets to Kane Brown coming up this month. What in sports made you say, oh no? Quickly, Titans have made a signing. They are bringing back cornerback and special team standout Justin Hardy Sr. on a one-year deal. This reported by Jordan Schultz. So Justin Hardy, who played 9 games for the Titans last year, will get a chance to work with John Bones Fossil and the Titans special teams unit again in 2025. That dropping just a few minutes ago. Okay, what in sports made you say, oh no? I'll start the bidding, Robert, with Arizona wide receiver Tet McMillan. He might be wide receiver 1 in this draft, depending on what Travis Hunter gets drafted to play primarily. But Hunter aside, we understand he is a unique situation. Wide receiver 1, Tet McMillan, potentially was caught on video during his time in Arizona, and this has been making the round. This is Tet McMillan and what appears to be a cafeteria on campus at Arizona, talking about how he does not enjoy watching film.
I don't watch football.
You don't watch football? At all?
At all.
Is it hard to watch film then if you don't like watching football?
Yeah.
For real? That's crazy.
I don't like watching film either. I don't ever need to watch it by myself because we go over as a receiver group.
Okay, that might have been hard to hear at the end. He said, I don't watch film either. I never watch it by myself because we go over it as a receiver group. Now, this just seems like an offhand video, some leaked audio. You might not care about this. The Titans certainly don't seem like they're in on Tet McMillan, so it may not matter to you. But this stuff matters to teams, man. I mean, this is going to knock Tet McMillan down some boards, right? Catching him in an honest moment like this, saying, no, why do I need to watch film on my own when I can just watch it in my wide receiver room?
Yeah, my biggest thing is, do we know when this is from? Yeah. Is this from 2021? Is this a young Tet McMillan? Is this after he... You know what I mean? There's so many... This is this year's equivalent to the Laramie Tunsil gas mask without being so touchy-feely. But, like, to me... I don't know. I got to talk to the guy. This offhand video, he's talking to some... Is this a student reporter? Is this somebody that came up to him in the student cafeteria? Is this like... Is he just not want to talk to this guy? Was he being sarcastic? Like, there's so many things that could be taken out of context. Like, yeah, man, I don't even watch film. Yeah, I don't even watch film. I'm so good I don't need to. Like, to me... I don't know. There are too many questions for me to be like, yep, that guy hates football. You know what I mean? I saw a lot of people jumping on him early. There are just things we don't know. And you could be wrong. That could be truly how he feels about it. But I would rather lean and wait to find out how he feels when I get to talk to him at either the Combine or my 30 visit or what have you. But I don't disagree with you. It's a bad look. But it would only make me kind of like when the weird girl's kind of hot. You're like, I'm just kind of interested. I want to know more about. Tell me about these imaginary horses you play with. Yes.
Oh, the draft stock. We'll see what happens with Tet McMillan as that comes out. What you got?
Mine, oh no, goes out to, listen, I don't watch baseball. I don't consume it unless the Pirates are on, and even then I'm probably checking the box score.
The ECU Pirates, not the Pittsburgh Pirates.
The ECU Pirates, correct. It's pretty boring to me. It's pretty slow. I don't care about the changes they made. But this week, baseball showed up on my timeline more than I've ever noticed it before. And it's all because of these daggum bats. These, I think they're calling them torpedo bats for the Yankees. I thought baseball people were smart. I watched Moneyball. I saw Brad Pitt. They were able to make a good team out of okay players. I thought these guys were smart. And now we're all going to herald, be like, baseball's fixed because of these bats. Oh, yeah, how'd you do it? We just made the bat bigger on the bigger spot of it. Are you kidding me? If you guys haven't thought of that yet, I have a new idea for you. How about for gloves, now stay with me here, we just make giant gloves.
5 foot wide gloves.
Nothing is ever going to go over a home run anyone's head ever again. Also, what if we just put big shoes on everybody with extenders, lifts? So now 7-foot giants are walking around the outfield. What are we talking about? No one's tried this before, and apparently there's a patent on it, so no other team would be able to use it. The Yankees just diddled their way around the bat laws. This is dumb to me. Let everybody use the bats. Better yet, let everybody use steroids. It doesn't matter to me. The game would be a lot more fun if we were just ripping home runs and pushing guys off second base and everybody having roid rage. Bring back baseball. Make it cool again. I don't care about the bats.
The concept of this just now being thought of is pretty funny to me. They've been playing this sport a long time, and now the bats are getting bigger, and they're hitting more home runs.
The way they framed it was like Yankee scientists were able to figure out if they moved more wood to the area that's more commonly hit, the ball would go farther. No, it's so hard for me not to cuss through this. Are you kidding me? That's what went into it? That's all it took to hit way more? Everybody's just Bam Bam from Flintstones now, knocking the ball out of the park? That's dumb as hell to me.
Hey, whatever brings more runs, whatever makes baseball more entertaining, I'm for it.
Only for Yankees fans, though, apparently.
I think some other teams are using it. I've heard the Atlanta Braves are getting involved.
Oh, okay, that makes everything right then.
It'll be pretty widespread. We'll see.
I think they should let them cheat. Let them cheat like the Astros did. Everybody gets to cheat. Everybody gets to sign steal.
Baseball was fun when they were cheating. 615-737-1045. Let's breeze through some calls here. Jordan is up first for a chance to win some Kane Brown tickets. Remember to stay on hold after you give your submission for a chance to win the tickets. Hey, Jordan.
Hey guys, my oh no is Major League Baseball. MLB forced fans to pay $150 for their streaming service, MLB TV. Last Thursday on opening day, the most important day of the regular season, their streaming service crashed, causing baseball fans to be outraged. On Saturday, the league sent out its apology for the glitch. And then at the end of the apology, to thank you for your support of the national pastime, MLB would like to offer you $10 off of any purchase of $25 or more at MLBshop.com. Gee, thanks. The league could have offered a partial refund or something similar. Instead, we get a coupon on overpriced merchandise.
Thanks for the call, Jordan. What can you buy on MLB's official website for $25? Like a coaster? I imagine a coaster costs $25. You get $10 off. Great. $10 off of this $250 sweatshirt. It is almost more insulting to include that in there than to offer nothing at all. Great submission there by Jordan. Major League Baseball stepping in it again. Zach is up next in Chattanooga. Hey, Zach.
So my oh no moment was this offseason, the Atlanta Braves signed another outfielder like they did with Ozuna a few years ago. And he's already tested positive for performance enhancers, and he's out for 80 games. So that's my oh no moment.
Man, going baseball heavy.
Gosh, should have just let the dude play. Come on, let the boys play.
Stay on hold, Zach, for your chance to win the tickets. Yeah, I saw this. Jurickson Profar, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, 80-game suspension after testing positive for a banned substance after being acquired by the Braves. Micah is up next to Murfreesboro. Hey, Micah.
Yeah, my oh no is going to be Tennessee on Sunday. The first half was just atrocious. Watching it at a local establishment, it was just embarrassing.
It's hard to watch. Thanks, Micah, for the call. 0 of 14 on their first 14 three-point attempts. And they were getting good looks, too, was the thing. Tennessee wasn't able to get anything in the lane. Houston was dominant physically in this game. A better version of Tennessee, I would say. But, yeah, no doubt it was hard to have your worst shooting performance of the season in the biggest game of the year. Clinton will be our final call here. Hey, Clinton. All right, Clinton, thanks for the call. So, do we have to give it to Jordan? I think Major League Baseball offering a $10 coupon after their streaming flub for a purchase of $25 or more on the website, which I can't even begin to imagine what could cost $25 on MLB's official website, should get these Kane Brown tickets. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. Jordan should win.
All right, Jordan, you are going to Kane Brown later in April. Stay on hold. Robert will get you hooked up with the tickets. So, Brad Callahan spoke about a lot of things yesterday, including two players that are on the Titans roster but made next to no impact last year. L'Jarius Sneed and Traylon Burks. Expectations for them going into 2025. We'll talk about it next on 104.5 The Zone. It is 11:02. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. NFL owners voted on rule changes this morning as owners' meetings continue in West Palm Beach. A change of overtime rules was passed that'll allow both teams to possess the ball in an overtime period during the regular season. They also voted to expand replay assist, helping officials on plays where flags are thrown on intentional grounding, roughing the passer, and runners hit out of bounds, among other penalties. The discussion on banning the tush push was tabled. It will not be voted on this week. The Titans made a signing this morning, bringing back cornerback and special teams standout Justin Hardy. He played 9 games for the Titans last year. He's coming back on a 1-year deal, according to Jordan Schultz. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Hour number 2, coverage continues from owners' meetings down in West Palm Beach. I'm Lucas Panzica. Robert Walsh and I are with you until 1 o'clock. Buck will stop in about 15, 20 minutes to preview his discussion with Titans GM Mike Borgonzi. You can hear that right here at noon in about an hour. Buck sit down with the Titans GM. We are, of course, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Be sure to check out their Jumbo Wing special for the Final Four coming up this weekend. 24 Jumbo Wings, $35. Go to HattieB.com to learn more. Before we get to some of Brian Callahan's comments yesterday about 2 players with a lot to prove for the Titans in 2025, there is this brief headline as we continue to monitor the Pittsburgh Aaron Rodgers situation. ESPN Steelers reporter Brooke Pryor, after talking to Art Rooney, reports that Rooney said the Steelers believe, quote, all signs are positive that the team will reach a deal with Aaron Rodgers to become their quarterback. The Steelers will, quote, wait a little while longer on Rodgers, but they will not wait forever. So in the end here, the crossroads for Rodgers seems to be Steelers or retire, right? It's hard to fathom another option for Aaron Rodgers in 2025, at least an option that kind of checks some boxes. A team that is competitive. A team with an array of weaponry that can help him win some games this year, that can help kind of rub the stink off of the last couple of years from his experience with the Jets from a legacy perspective, if that's something that he's focusing on right now. So that does feel like feels a little bit inevitable right now that Aaron Rodgers will be a Pittsburgh Steeler. And I've said this, Robert, it makes sense to me. Like from the jump, that's the one place, truly, I think, the one place in the NFL where it felt like Aaron Rodgers could land and it not be an unmitigated disaster. As a Ravens fan, residing in the AFC North, rather, with Pittsburgh right there in the division, how would you feel about Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh?
I would love it.
You would love it?
I would love it because I think that keeps them in the quarterback purgatory that they've currently been in for the last... since Ben Roethlisberger, really. They have been so good at not being bad, not being a top 10 or bottom 10 team in the NFL to keep them out of the quarterback carousel. So if you have Aaron Rodgers, like it's not like they're saying, yeah, we're going to run it with Mason Rudolph. We trust Mason Rudolph. That I wouldn't trust. They might get 4, 5, 6 wins. With Aaron Rodgers, I truly believe the Steelers, with a competent run game, a complementing defense like they have, could end up having 7, 8, 9 wins. And if they didn't, it would be the first time Tomlin went under 500 in his coaching tenure with the Steelers. So to me, I love it because it keeps them in that middle ground, in that purgatory where they're not able to suck bad enough to get any of the quarterbacks next year. I would love that. Now, unless Rodgers doesn't play ball or decides that he wants to be a headache and it's too much for Tomlin to handle, that remains to be seen. But I would love this for the Ravens, not necessarily the Steelers.
Interesting. Certainly anything but a long-term option for Pittsburgh. But you're right. Like that feels like it would just be enough to keep the Steelers head above the water. They'd probably be a playoff team, which they always are. under Mike Tomlin. They'd probably finish with a winning record. They probably have some exciting games, some exciting wins. But in terms of actually challenging, contending for anything, that is hard to imagine at the moment, even if Aaron Rodgers finds his groove with DK Metcalf and George Pickens, as explosive as that trio might be on and off the field.
The other side of it feels like that if this is a disaster, that Tomlin would not be around to see the benefits of sucking. He would not be the one drafting the new quarterback. Talking to Ramon, talking to other Steelers fans, talking to people around the situation, Steelers fans have already been pressed up. We kind of talked about this yesterday, how every fan base has something they don't like about their coach, no matter how successful they are. Steelers fans are tired of Mike Tomlin. Steelers fans have been looking for a reason to get rid of Mike Tomlin. And this is the first time. Generally, I would back up, I would fight, and I would still fight in this situation. But I'll play devil's advocate. That this seems like a situation that they backed themselves into. You backed yourself into this not having a better quarterback option. You backed into this not being able to develop Kenny Pickett. You didn't go after Sam Darnold. You didn't try to trade for Geno Smith. You didn't try to add any other quarterback element in this. It seems like this is a sadness that you chose. So for you choosing this and you putting us in this situation, I could see where they could potentially go in another direction. That would be the most disastrous situation for adding Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, for the Steelers.
Did the Titans back into a bad contract situation with L'Jarius Sneed? We might get, I don't know if we'll get a full answer on that this year, but it feels like we will. Brian Callahan talked about it yesterday morning down at owners' meetings. L'Jarius Sneed, just his timeline and what they are expecting of him, what he is expecting of himself in 2025.
Yeah, he should definitely be ready for camp. He's moving right along in the rehab process. He's been around in the building, so that's been good to have him, to see him. He's been around almost every day, so that's good. I think he's in a good space. I think he's getting ready to come show. That last year was something that he was trying to prove that he's still one of the best corners in football, and I think that's a good place for him to be.
Brian Callahan talking about L'Jarius Sneed there. So says he'll be ready to go for camp. He says Treylon Burks, by the way, likely won't be ready for camp as he continues to recover from an ACL, but potentially will be ready for the start of the season. And he also mentioned that he hopes Lloyd Cushenberry will be good to go for camp. Obviously, the center coming off an Achilles injury, he has pledged that he will be ready to roll come training camp later on in the summer. Brian Callahan hopeful that that will be the case, and certainly that would be a benefit for the Titans, especially if they're breaking in their number 1 overall pick rookie quarterback to have a fully healthy and experienced starting 5 up front on the offensive line. So expectations for L'Jarius Sneed in 2025. You heard Brian Callahan. Sneed expects to be recognized once again as one of the best corners in the sport after a season where he played in 5 games. He dealt with injuries all season long. There were question marks on the exact nature of those injuries throughout the course of the year. He will be 28 all season in 2025. We were talking about this before the show, Robert, trying to find examples of corners at the very top of their game, playing at an all-pro caliber level that went into a season like this, what Sneed experienced in 2025, plagued by injuries. When he was on the field, he certainly wasn't the best version of himself. And then coming back around to reach those heights again after that season of lack of availability, inconsistency, whatever you want to call it. Because we can play this game for Treylon Burks as well. When you look across first-round wide receivers, guys that went down a similar path as Burks in the first 3 years of their career, next to no production, availability being a huge issue, those players, they don't have the breakout in year 4 and year 5, right? It just doesn't happen. So can you think of an example like that, like a L'Jarius Sneed, of a guy that recaptured those heights after a bad season like Sneed experienced last year?
So there were 2 examples that we were able to find that I think are most applicable to Sneed, and obviously, there are more examples to the contrary than there are to prove that he would have a bounce back. But the 2 that we found were Richard Sherman in 2017 tore his Achilles, but it returned in 2018 with the 49ers and earned Pro Bowl and All-Pro nods in 2019. So 2 years removed from his injury. And then Darrelle Revis in 2012. So slightly after the peak Revis Island, but still a fantastic player. Tore his Achilles or his ACL in 2012. He returned in 2013 and then earned first-team All-Pro nods and led the Patriots to a Super Bowl in 2014. So also 2 years removed from his large injury.
So when you're thinking best case scenario for L'Jarius Sneed, it's to get back to that Pro Bowl level, right? Like that can happen for a player who's only 28 years old, will have an entire offseason of recovery, and the Titans need it to. Chido Awuzie is out of the picture at this point. Jarvis Brownlee goes into his second year. Roger McCreary comes back still under contract. But the Titans need that out of L'Jarius Sneed in 2025. I'd say they certainly need that out of Sneed in 2025 more than they need whatever you could expect out of Burks in 2025, because that expectation for Burks is in the basement. I mean, there's nothing that you can reasonably expect from Treylon Burks, whether it's availability or production next season. So to me, Burks a non-factor. Burks can be ready to go day one of training camp, and it's hard for me to even really factor him into the Titans' plans at wide receiver, even with how bare that room is right now with Calvin Ridley and Van Jefferson, and then you get into Treylon Burks and the likes of Bryce Oliver and Mason Kinsey. Even still, I have next to no expectations for Treylon Burks in 2025. But if L'Jarius Sneed is healthy in 2025, you should have the expectation he'll get back to that level. That is the type of money that he's making after the trade from Kansas City, which, by the way, I would be fascinated to get a truthful moment with Mike Borgonzi about that trade going down. As we know, Borgonzi helped facilitate that trade when he was still in Kansas City, negotiating with Chad Brinker on the Titans side to get Sneed to Nashville. I would love to be a fly on the wall in that moment when the Chiefs offloaded L'Jarius Sneed and honestly what they thought about the deal, what they thought they were getting rid of in terms of the player. There's no doubt the Chiefs loved L'Jarius Sneed. Andy Reid has spoken glowingly about him at every turn, but not being the one to pay him, and obviously there were health questions when that trade happened. I wonder if the Chiefs felt like they got a pretty good end of that deal. And now Mike Borgonzi flips over to the other side of that deal, and he's here in Tennessee. I'd be curious to get that truthful moment that we probably never will. So, yeah, that should be the expectation for L'Jarius Sneed. We put it to a poll. What's the best case for Sneed in 2025? At Lucas Panzica is where you can vote. What are your expectations of L'Jarius Sneed? And Jacob replied, CB1, period. DJ says simply that he plays an entire game. So there's a wide range here for what fans are going to expect of him going into 2025. But if he's healthy, the expectation of himself will be to be one of the best corners in the league. And under that money, that should be exactly what the expectation, the baseline is for Sneed in 2025. Coming up next, Buck will check in from West Palm Beach. We'll talk about some of these rule changes, what he's hearing down there about the Titans, and we'll preview his chat with Mike Borgonzi that you're going to hear coming up at noon here on 104.5 The Zone. Hey guys, Lucas here to tell you about one of the coolest new spots in Music City. You've got to check out Fog Street Lawn Club, Nashville's premier soccer pub. It's your go-to spot to watch Nashville SC games this Saturday afternoon on the road at Charlotte. Go hang out with some Nashville fans and take it in at 1:30. And it's open early for Premier League soccer, even for those 6 a.m. kickoffs. They're serving brunch and watching the Premier League action. But really, no matter the sport, Fog Street Lawn Club makes sure you will not miss a moment. Final Four coming up this weekend. It is the perfect spot. And the best part of it is you can spend the whole day there and never get bored. Check out the rooftop with the most picture-perfect view of downtown Nashville you can find. Trust me on that one. Play British-style lawn bowling or cornhole for free on the rooftop, or head next door. Challenge your friends to some axe throwing at Bad Axe. They're located near the Gulch in the upcoming Pytown neighborhood. Fog Street Lawn Club gives you the experience of downtown Nashville with a perfect escape from all the hustle and bustle of Broadway. Family friendly, great for all sports fans. You can host special events there as well, not to mention an incredible menu of British pub-style food and a large drink selection. Happy hour, Monday through Thursday from 3 to 6 p.m. And go check them out at Fog Street Lawn Club, located on Fog Street. Been a little bit gloomy this week in Nashville. Sun's poking out a little bit today. It's definitely not West Palm Beach, where it seems like the entire NFL plus Buck Rising is hanging out during owners' meetings, a bunch of stuff being voted on, a bunch of stuff being tabled, being discussed. And it's another day of Buck's work vacation. Like, what are you even calling this? It's a vacation. You're taking days, to my knowledge. Grace is down there with you, having a great time, but you're also kicking it with us for some reason. Hello.
Hello. How are we? How's morale?
Oh, the show's gotten worse every day.
I mean, indisputably. I knew that as soon as I left. You got no juice.
We're doing a terrible job. I'm just kidding. Everybody's having a good time.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. There's a lot to talk about, God knows. And this is honestly, I think I've changed my position, boys. I know Combine has been my favorite week of the year. This is top notch from the access to the amount of information to all the different things all the different people that you see down here that they've got participating. Serena Williams, Caitlin Clark, Eli Manning, given a panel that we were a part of. What was that, Sunday? Really, really cool. The NFL, turns out they know what they're doing and they're putting that money to good use.
Yeah, that is a pretty crazy statement by you, that spending time in West Palm Beach would be more fun than Indianapolis, Indiana. I never thought about it that way, I guess.
Yeah, it turns out I belong in a place like this. I didn't quite shell out the $3,000 a night, the minimum $3,000 a night that it costs to stay at the Breakers, but I do think that I fit in quite nicely here.
I've always thought that Indiana or Indianapolis was the West Palm Beach of the Midwest, but I guess the real thing is actually better.
Many people have said this.
So, most interesting thing from this morning, Tush Push being tabled, as you said, that's dominated the headlines down there this week. But what is everybody talking about today from what owners did and did not vote on earlier?
Yeah, it's a lot of different things that you go through when you look at the different things that actually got approved, from the permitting clubs to designate players for roster reductions, as far as going to the competition committee and the officiating, aligning the postseason and the regular season overtime rules, trying to grant both teams the opportunity to possess the ball, which I know has been a big talking point, and then the replay ability, the instant replay ability being expanded here to advise the on-field officials for specific objective aspects of a play is the way that the NFL officially stated it. And I think it's that latter one is probably going to be the biggest talking point down here, because interesting enough, and I hope that we do talk about this at some point, boys, the fact that Amy Adams-Strunk is down here and that every other owner seems to be doing some level of media availability except for her. I was just sitting next to the Vikings owner who was talking in a radio interview with their flagship station back in Minnesota about all the different things, and specific to the replay or review or the replay assist, expanding the replay there, almost to encourage refs to err on the side of throwing the flags and then to review it afterwards, which I understand because, of course, the objective is to get it as right as humanly possible. But then we're talking about a whole different set of situations here when you get into pace of play.
Interesting. So it's kind of the opposite of what we're used to, right? Like if there's, let's say, a play where the quarterback gets hit and the ball comes out, and in the moment you don't know if it's a fumble or a forward pass, but the defender scoops it up, the ref's going to let the defender, in most cases, run it back, right? So you can see after the fact. What you're talking about is kind of a reverse of this.
Yeah, exactly right. And, I think coaches, the competition committee, obviously in favor of it. That was something that they had emphasized on a couple of different fronts and really were messaging about that the entire time. The impact that it'll have, and specific, Lucas, specific to you rarely hear them bring up, well, I guess it's become a little less taboo, right? The idea of ownership and league officials talking about the impact of gambling on these games and wanting to get calls right specific for the partnerships that they've got with these sports books and for the people who are betting billions upon billions with a B of dollars on each and every result.
All right. Anything else that sticks out before we move on to any of the latest discussion around the Titans today, what some other owners are saying around the NFL? I know Art Rooney had some comments about Aaron Rodgers. We know we talked a lot about the overtime rules. Both teams getting a possession, the touchback now being at the 35 and not the 30 with the new kickoff format, and tush push being tabled. Is there anything that we are not discussing that, let's say it's week 7 or week 2, right? And it comes around, and because we totally forgot about it being talked about at owners' meetings?
You know, I don't know if it's going to be a situation like that, but one of the approved resolutions was to the way that clubs prepare the kicking footballs. They call them the K-balls before game day, similar to what the process has been permitted for game footballs. The kickoff has really been the thing that I think, talking to an AFC general manager today at breakfast, he was surprised by how much discussion was being had about the kickoff and how much was being made about the kickoff as they continue to try and keep returns in the game, but plenty of people not interested in having teams start at the 35-yard line, even though it does, or in certain situations, obviously starting at the 35-yard line with the way that it was currently set up in its trial phase, its exploratory period last year. Scoring up, yes. Field goals, though, is not what you're looking for. You're trying to increase the amount of returns, trying to increase the amount of touchdowns, and not just allowing teams to settle because they get the opportunity to start at 35, and it becomes a hell of a lot easier to get down the field that way.
And then how about this? Buck Rising checking in from owners' meetings at West Palm Beach. The NFL using Sony Hawkeye technology to electronically measure all first downs next season. We have been begging for this. How many games come down to controversial spots by officials? I can think of one in the AFC Championship last year between Chiefs and Bills. That was pretty consequential. And the NFL finally, it seems, is using technology. And the chain crew, Buck, now becomes a backup solution.
Thank God. I mean, with all due respect to the usually geriatrics, I don't want to say that they're all white hair old men who are running the chain gangs on the sidelines and getting legs broken if Will Levis so happens to fly out of bounds on a particular play. It's just such for as much money that is wagered. Gambling does a lot of harm for sure, but gambling can also bring good to the specificity and to the exact nature that we need that decides so many of these results, because there was not forward momentum on that for 100 years, and maybe the technology was lacking specifically, and we've just now gotten to a point where it makes the most sense. But I do think that has also been a major emphasis, that the amount of gambling and the comfort level, the increased comfort level that the league now has with its corporate partners who are in that world, to make sure that they get the damn spot right for a multi-billion-dollar industry to still be doing it with the chain gang is one of the dumbest things in the world. So thank God they came to their senses.
Yeah, thank goodness, man. This has been a long time coming. Now, I do have some follow-ups. Like, is there a chip at each tip of the ball? Are there chips around the perimeter of the football? Is there like laser line technology that alerts you if the chip crosses a certain yard line? Like, I would love to know more about.
Do you think there's like a warning sign that goes off if they're not doing it with? Wasn't it Gene Steratore that had like a note card or something like that? Like something that he was using, the index card between the ball.
That's right.
Just a mess.
I mean,
we have advanced to laser technology, much like our breaking news sounders. We have advanced to the age of the laser light show.
The index card thing was like a handful of years ago. Like, that was not that long ago that we were doing that in NFL games, and now here we are. I mean,
correct.
I know that in soccer, like in a FIFA World Cup and in Europe in the Premier League, goal line technology is a thing, right? Where if the ball completely crosses the goal line, which is what is necessary for it to be a goal, and a lot of times it's very controversial, and referees are using their judgment and what's in their eye line and all these things, an official has something that buzzes them, that alerts them, hey, the ball did cross the line. So I wonder if it'll be something similar, that a referee will have something on his person that can physically confirm to him that the ball did cross the plane of the 21 or the goal line or whatever it takes to get a first down.
And I would just be curious I know that we have officials at varying levels that are within the listening audience back home, whether they be, high school or collegiate or even some people who have done it at the professional level. I would be curious to know if the officials don't think that this is significantly better for their own mental well-being. I mean, the amount of rage that they get, and rightfully so, when calls are made incorrectly, when they have to deal with this. Obviously, you're not looking for anything to the extent of what a lot of these officials get, which is oftentimes death threats and awful things that go down. But if I was a ref, I would be so grateful for this finally, because you understand that there is always going to be some level of human error. So to minimize the level of human error that you can bring to the table and assist you, again, replay assist you in doing your job, I can't imagine that officials aren't happy about this.
Buck checking in from West Palm Beach. Owners' meetings continue. So what's on for the rest of the week then? Are there more meetings? Will there be more voting to take place? It seems like all the big ticket items, whether it's the tush push or playoff seeding, right? The things that basically got tabled and the touchback rule, the overtime rules, things that actually got voted on, feels like those have kind of been resolved, at least for this week. So what's the point of the next couple days down in West Palm Beach?
No, they have in fact shortened the annual meeting significantly to where we're done today. Like everybody got called in for the vote. The Rich McKay and several others on the competition committee addressed the media. I took part in that press conference about an hour ago. And now it's just about coaches get the opportunities, executives get the opportunities to take a little break in the off season. It now becomes vacation time for the rest of the league down here. And it's good. I don't think there's any need to stretch these things out for a full week the way that we had previously done them.
Yeah, I agree, Buck. It's so nice that you're going to be back to work tomorrow. The whole gang's going to be back together.
I'm not coming back to work tomorrow.
What do you mean? You just said the meetings were over.
I'm going to the beach.
What have you been doing these last 2 days?
You two are holding me up for the next 15 minutes before I go to the beach yet again.
Oh, we're not.
And no, I will not be zooming in from the beach. Today will conclude our last visit until I do return home from beautiful Palm Beach.
Oh, we're not gonna be here tomorrow.
Yeah, me and Lucas are actually going to Palm Beach.
Yeah, like we
thought we could room with you. And you were going to come back and do the show.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk.
That's a very interesting proposal, though. I think as soon as you caught sight of Lucas, it's always fun to go out to lunch with Lucas and Bert and things like that to see the level of outrage that they have about the cost of things. I would invite you to come down to Palm Beach and see how much it costs to spend some time in Palm Beach, because I paid $50 this morning for a donut.
I just knew you were going to squeeze that in. All right, so you are, or you already did, talk to Titans GM Mike Borgonzi. We're going to play that interview coming up in about 25 minutes. Give us a little teaser of it. What did you guys talk about? And just generally, what is the discussion around the Tennessee Titans in West Palm Beach around the #1 overall pick with everybody that's there?
Well, so we'll start with the former. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about Cam Ward specifically, the difference between the private workouts and the pro day. We talked about the rebuilding of the offensive line, the free agent process, because obviously he hasn't given any kind of a press conference, nor have the free agents spoken since they brought in 11 new players and brought back 4 of their own who were on expiring deals. We talked about the different things that they're looking for out of the Colorado workout, because, of course, Chad Brinker, the president of football operations, and Brian Callahan will not be there, but they will participate in the private workout as they continue to fine-tune these things. And then we talked a good deal about just kind of what it's been like to be the belle of the ball, because he doesn't necessarily seem like somebody who's overwhelmingly comfortable with the level of attention that he's got at this point, but he's handling it all in stride. So I think people will get a lot out of the conversation. And then specifically the conversation around the Titans has nothing to do with who they're drafting or all the new it has more to do with all the new pieces and parts. People everywhere. Mostly it's about how awkward is this between the Patriots contingent and the Titans contingent and all these different things. And that's been a bit of the scuttlebutt. And then additionally, like, what the hell are they doing down there in Tennessee? Or I guess where I'm at up there in Tennessee, like what is this president of football operations situation? All the things that we've spent months talking about, the final say nonsense. Your owner is here, but she's not speaking to anybody, and she's empowering people to speak on her behalf. And she's, she may or may not have people scouring the hallways to make sure vultures like me can't, just happen to not jump her necessarily, but just happen to surprise. Oh, so lovely to see you, Miss Amy, here wandering the halls of the Breakers Hotel, where I have no business being otherwise, just sitting in a chair outside of, the international game meetings or something like that. It's more about the drama than it is about the football, which has been the case for us for 4 years.
Okay, so if the discussion is about the front office setup, which is unique in nature, right? President of football operations with final say in Chad Brinker, general manager Mike Borgonzi, surrounded by former general managers in the front office, Dave Ziegler, Reggie McKenzie, down to head coach Brian Callahan. If that is a lot of the discussion down there, what's the reaction? Is it intrigue at what the Titans are doing? Is it people impressed with this format that they've set up, taking things off the plate of the GM? Is it ridicule? I mean, what is the general opinion consensus on the way the Titans are doing this?
It's more like, that's unique. It's kind of been the approach that people have taken with it. And to be completely fair, like, gotten plenty of really good feedback on Brian Callahan from a variety of different people, and just essentially wishing him well in the middle of this, because the retention rate, and this was pointed out to me down here by a couple of different people, the retention rate for an embattled coach, we'll call him, drafting a rookie quarterback, not overwhelmingly good when you look at the statistics on that, if that's something that you're interested in. And really, a lot of people expressing belief league-wide about Brian's ability to do this job. Had they just had they been able to have, I don't know, basically half of the free agents that they signed not end the year on IR the way that they did, and had they even received remotely league average quarterback play to the point where they were not tied for the league lead in turnovers. So I think a lot of people, it's not pity, but just kind of, well, I think, hopefully, essentially hoping that the organization does right by a person who is respected around the league. Because there have been plenty of people who have not been done correctly, who are respected around the league, whether it's front-facing Titans individuals or a lot of people who have been institutional to that organization who have been cleared out specifically in the last couple of months. So more skepticism of the powers that be, as opposed to the person who's going to have to shoulder a lot of the burden once the games actually start to be played.
Do you think that lack of discussion about who the Titans will take number one overall, you said that's not exactly what everybody's chatting about down there. Do you think that is a product of an assumption that it is Cam Ward?
Yeah, because they it's for the same reason that we have that conversation. They look at the quarterback room and say they're not walking into 2025 looking like that. You know what I'm saying? Like they're in a terrible situation if they have to run it back with Will Levis. And I know Chad Brinker gave an interview to Jimmy Wyatt on the team's website saying that they fully expect Will Levis to compete for the starting quarterback job, which just sent everybody, grasping at their throats a little bit, or gasping for air, being like, you better not mean what it is that you just said, as opposed to going through the process. But yeah, it's taken as an assumption that just down the road here, about 30 to 45 minutes in Coral Gables, that they better take that damn quarterback, which is the exact same thing that we've been saying.
All right, so clearly you want everybody to know that you have enough money to spend $50 on a donut. You tweeted about it. You brought it up unnecessarily in this segment. So go ahead, tell us about this donut. How great was it? How grandiose was this donut that you felt the need to spend $50 on it?
I'm going to send you a picture, and you're going to love it.
No, but come on, give me something. Give me something.
Nice try. I didn't hear it yesterday, but you got me.
I mean, what it tastes like a scale of 1 to 10. What it tastes like. Now he's just being rude.
Yeah, I don't care.
Get him
I don't
out of
care.
here.
We got him.
All right.
We got him.
He'll be back.
Consider yourself got, buddy.
No, we can tell ourselves that. Oh, we tried to run it back from yesterday.
I told you as soon as he brought it up the first time, we should have cut it short, dude. We should have just said, hell with it, sent him on, not had to deal with it, but we lingered too long trying to get free labor out of him, and now we got stuck with the end of it.
No, we should have asked him a football question, because that would have kept him off guard, and he would think that the segment is still going on. Is he still there?
Unfortunately.
Okay. So, Buck, I mean, you said you bumped into Amy Adams Strunk. Like, what did you guys have a conversation? Who is she surrounded by? I mean, what is the general opinion on her right now down there?
Oh, he left.
All right, he'll be back on Thursday.
What a jerk.
We were going to cut him off after 5 seconds anyway. He mentioned the numbers on retention of head coaches that are embattled already going into a year where they're likely going to take a rookie quarterback with the number 1 overall pick. There are some interesting numbers to that effect on the survival rate, for lack of a better phrase, for coaches in that situation. We'll get to that, and something interesting that a college football program from Robert's neck of the woods is doing this upcoming season. That's next on 104.5 The Zone.
Will I have enough money when I retire? When should I start to draw from Social Security? A lot of us have asked ourselves these questions, and sometimes it keeps you up at night. If that's the case for you, let me introduce you to a team that's there to keep you on the right track and guide you through it. That's Trajan Wealth, Trajan Wealth, not just any financial firm. They are your partners in securing your financial future. They're more than just a fiduciary firm at Trajan Wealth. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind. So call them today at 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000. Or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement.
How often does a head coach in the NFL, with a losing season already under his belt, survive his team drafting a rookie quarterback at the top of the NFL draft? It's something Buck brought up when we talked to him just now from West Palm Beach. He'll be back in studio, unfortunately for everybody, on Thursday. And it's something that Easton Freeze wrote about on A2ZSports.com. Easton did some digging on some of these statistics. And here is the excerpt from Easton's article. Needless to say, it's a bit of a bloodbath. Let's boil down the findings a bit. In the last decade, 17 quarterbacks were taken top 3 in the NFL draft. 10 of their head coaches were fired during or after their rookie year. 3 of their GMs were fired during or after their rookie year. Out of 17 quarterbacks taken top 3 in the draft, 10 of those head coaches fired before or after the rookie season. Now, there's a lot of context there, right? If you are picking number 1 overall, unless you traded up for it, you probably had a terrible season before. Or even if you didn't, and you traded up to that pick, and you were not the worst team in the NFL, like the Chicago Bears, Matt Eberflus got fired during Caleb Williams' rookie season. So he's a part of this statistic. Brian Callahan obviously comes from a background where the head coach was one of the survivors, so to speak. Zach Taylor, with Callahan obviously as his offensive coordinator, survived a dreadful first 2 seasons in Cincinnati. 2-14 in year 1. 4-11-1 in year 2, and that was with Joe Burrow as a rookie quarterback. Obviously, he tore his ACL later on in that season. And then year 3 of the Zach Taylor era, we know what happened. The Bengals went 10-7. They defeated the Titans at Nissan Stadium and went on to lose to the Rams in the Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium. Robert, what is your instant reaction answer if I tell you Brian Callahan goes 4-11-1, well, we'll say 4 to 5 wins this year with Cam Ward as his rookie quarterback, even with Ward showing some flashes? Do you see a scenario where Callahan could survive a 4 to 5 win season in year 2 as the head coach here?
A scenario? Yeah. If it was all 1-score games, if they were in a lot of the games, you don't have to necessarily not get blown out for me to keep you, but say they win 4 to 5 games. The other 4 to 5 are 1-score games, and the other ones they get it's out of hand. Sure, I could see a scenario where you see a little growth, you see his offensive play calling come out a little bit more. Yeah, I could 100% see a way that he would keep it. Now, it wouldn't be likely with 4 to 5 wins because that probably means that you made some mistakes along the way. But in this scenario, I would say yeah.
Okay, so I guess that spins into the question: what would Cam Ward have to show for Brian Callahan to survive a 4 to 5 win type of season? Because we know, the Bengals organization is just patient by nature, right? For better or for worse. Patience for them can mean never letting go of a guy like Marvin Lewis, right? When the fan base probably wanted him gone year after year after year, kind of accepting mediocrity in a sense for a long stretch of time. Patience can be a bad thing, like when you kick the can on your star players. And you franchise tag T. Higgins a couple times, and you give Trey Hendrickson a 1-year deal, and now you find yourself having to pay all of these guys in one off season and providing some challenges for yourself in terms of the cap. So patience can be a bad thing. Patience can also be a good thing. And the Bengals have been patient with Zach Taylor. 6 wins in his first 2 years, but they saw enough from Joe Burrow to run it back with that coaching staff, and it resulted in a trip to the Super Bowl in year 3. Amy Adams Strunk has not exercised that type of patience in the last 2 to 3 years. So what would the barometer of Cam Ward promise, what would that have to look like? How much promise shown by Ward in his rookie year, assuming he is the guy, has to be there for the Titans to run it back with Callahan for a year 3, even after a bad season, like a 4 to 5 win campaign?
It would have to be almost like the antithesis of what Levis was, right? The mistakes that are made cannot be ones that are made because of mental fatigue or because of he wasn't prepared. It has to be mistakes around the team outside of Ward making them. Then you could kind of believe, okay, Callahan has brought him along, made him feel a little more comfortable. You would also have to say that Bill Callahan probably, because if you get rid of Brian, you're getting rid of Bill. If the offensive line grows, I also would say, like, okay, we're seeing a little bit of development here on the 2 big parts of the ball on offense. Like, that would make a big difference to me as well.
615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Tyler on the F&M Bank chat where you can hang out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, says, I think the way the season ends plays a big part. If the wins come early and they sputter out, it's worse than starting slow and getting going at the end of the year. That's a good point. What you get at the end of the season, where last year, I would argue, Will Levis's worst performance, not worst moment, worst performance came near the end of the year in the Bengals game when he did get benched for Mason Rudolph, right? Like that, to me, of all the crazy things that happened last year with Will Levis, that was the biggest red flag of all to me in 2024. Not the crazy interception against the Bears, not the what the bleep are you doing moment against the Jets, but the meltdown against the Cincinnati Bengals late in the season at home when you have a lead and you hand the game to the opponent. With all of those starts under your belt in 2024, that was the biggest red flag. That, to me, should be the headliner when you're talking about why we got the answer that we got on Will Levis. People are going to want to point to those early season moments. I care way more about what happened later in the season. There are going to be early struggles if Cam Ward is the Titans quarterback from day one as a rookie. But what is he doing in week 10, 11, 12? What kind of improvement is the team showing? And is that enough to save Brian Callahan's job if it's not a huge jump in wins, which we don't necessarily expect it to be?
I hate this comment, and I'm so tired of hearing about this. Like, who is he throwing to? We don't even know if he's your quarterback yet. Who is Ward throwing to? The draft still has to happen. And by the way, the receivers do not make the quarterback. The quarterback makes the receivers. I disagree with anyone who feels opposite. Because if you look at who has won it, look at Lamar's first MVP season. Go look up who he was throwing to. Willie Snead, Miles Boykin, and the best player you had was a first-round pick, Hollywood Brown.
I was going to say, Hollywood.
The wide receivers.
And Mark Andrews.
Sure, but it was a rookie. It was a young. This was when people thought he was still a running back. Like, the receivers, as long as they complement what you're doing, you don't need game breakers at every single, who's going to be the... I don't know. They're going to figure it out. You don't have to have guys this guy's an elite. You don't have to have a Jamar Chase and a T. Higgins at every single spot. Like, it's just, we're just yelling into the ether at this point. Who is he throwing to? We don't know yet. They haven't drafted anybody. We don't know if they're trading up in the second. We don't know we don't know anything. You just got to wait and see it play out. And even if he doesn't, even if they don't grab somebody, I still think you can evaluate Ward based on what you see. Just be like, you're going to make an excuse for somebody every year. Like the Levis detractors, like, oh, well, how can we evaluate Levis? He didn't have any time to throw. Well, then next year it's going to be, well, how can we evaluate Cam Ward? He didn't have anyone to throw to. You're never going to have a perfect roster, ever. There's always going to be holes. You can still evaluate people if you are less than in certain positions. I think that's a stupid argument. Who is he throwing to? You can figure that stuff out.
I would rather have a secure offensive line situation. And the Titans need receivers. Like, make no mistake. It's like we said, it's Calvin Ridley and really nobody else at the moment. It'll be interesting to see if they address the slot position in free agency. Tyler Lockett's still out there. Elijah Moore's still out there. And how they attack the wide receiver position in the draft. Can they come up with a third-round pick to help address that spot? But if you are asking me what's the better way to evaluate a young quarterback, if you can only have one, good offensive line play, good pass protection, but a bad wide receiver core, or bad pass protection and an excellent wide receiver core, I would take the former every time. I would give him time in the pocket every time. We'll see if this Titans offensive line can hold up. On paper, it looks like the best situation they've had in multiple seasons. But if Cam Ward's going to have time to throw, we're going to be able to get a good evaluation on him as a quarterback, even if he doesn't have all pro receivers to throw to. But the Titans need receivers. Both can absolutely be the case. Well, the man in charge of getting receivers to Tennessee is General Manager Mike Borgonzi. And Buck got a chance to catch up with him yesterday in West Palm Beach during owners' meetings. We will hear that interview with the Titans GM coming up next on 104.5 The Zone. Hey, friends, Lucas Panzika here, telling you that if you're new to Nashville or you've been here a long time, odds are you've got a clean-out project that the missus would love to see done by the spring. I've got news for you. It's spring. April has come around, and the most reliable folks I know that can help you are my friends at J&J Services. For over 20 years, J&J Services have been providing dumpsters for local businesses, construction sites, home cleanouts, and demolitions. They provide commercial dumpster service for your favorite restaurants and convenience stores. They provide roll-off dumpster service for everyone from 60-story high-rises to your neighbor's farm. J&J Services can offer trash compactors, making those large loads a little bit smaller. They can even supply you with porta potties for that special event. For the safest, most reliable service that you can get in Middle Tennessee, call them now for a free quote at 615-599-7778. JandJServices.com, where they always keep it trashy. It is 12:01. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. NFL owners voted on rule changes this morning as owners' meetings continue in West Palm Beach. A change of OT rules was passed that will allow both teams to possess the ball in an overtime period during the regular season. They also voted to expand replay assist to help officials on plays where flags are thrown in intentional grounding, roughing the passer, and runners hit out of bounds plays. And the discussion on banning the tush push was tabled. It will not be voted on this week. Titans made a signing this morning, bringing back cornerback and special teams standout Justin Hardy. He played 9 games for the Titans last year. That was reported by Jordan Schultz. The Nashville Predators road trip continues today at the Columbus Blue Jackets, picking up a third straight loss at the Flyers yesterday, 2-1. Puck drop tonight is at 6 p.m. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Final hour going until 1 o'clock, covering everything happening down in West Palm Beach. NFL owners meetings, rule changes being voted on, being tabled for later, which means just about every head coach, GM, and owner in the National Football League congregates in one place. So, of course, Buck was going to go scurrying down there, trying to get in the same room with as many people as he could, which he did with Titans GM Mike Borgonzi. Here is Buck's discussion with the Titans GM about the number 1 pick, about owners' meetings, and about generally the Titans offseason to this point.
So, Mike, since the last time we've done one of these, it's been about a month.
Yeah.
Are you tired of being the belle of the ball yet?
No, I'm glad we're getting closer to the draft. I'd say that.
And as you worked through, obviously the pre-draft process and everything that's involved with a week like this, the free agency was a huge hurdle for you guys to get done. You guys got a lot done. If I'm not mistaken, 11 free agents brought in. You retained 4 different guys who were getting ready to, or had contracts expire. And true to your word, you stuck to the building through the trenches approach. Is the offensive line situation, I understand Zeitler's a 1-year deal, is this kind of what the rebuilt version of the Titans offensive line is going to look like?
Yeah, I think so. Well, we have a lot of work to do just in terms of building the depth and throughout the line. But, I think, like I said from the beginning, I wanted to start to build the trenches. And, I think getting Dan and Kevin in there to fill those spots. And, JC's going to move to the right. So, we feel good about starting 5 right now. But, we're going to continue to build depth along the line. That's going to be important both on the offense and defensive line. And I think we've, filled some needs before the draft, So, when we get into the draft, we still have a lot of work to do in terms of, filling starter roles and building depth on the roster. But, I feel pretty good where we're at right now.
The value proposition of Dan alone kind of allowing you to address 2 of those positions, how important was that in particular to be able to slide JC? Is that a more natural position for him from your guys' perspective?
I think so. We all, did JC come out of college. He played right tackle. And, he played left tackle last year and he was fine, but I think he's probably more natural on the right. And we had an opportunity to bring in a veteran who's played 4 years left tackle in the league. He's young, he's durable. It's things that Dan has to clean up, and he will. I think he's still improving as a player. So we felt good about that.
You want to be better than league average, obviously, but just to get the line to a place where it could be operational, not, kind of undoing as much as you guys are trying to accomplish what they've been trying to accomplish on offense. What's kind of the bar for Dan that way?
Yeah, like I said, I think Dan brings in that ability to play left tackle. He's done it. And then moving Jason to the right, I think gives us some stability right now. We're not done trying to improve the line by any means. Not that we're set, but I think we're able to build a little bit of stability here. So now we have a starting 5 here we can line up with, and then continue to build that depth. I think is important. An important piece for where we are moving forward with that offensive line.
On the opposite side, the defensive line, how much do you guys still continue to need to do work? They're obviously adding some pieces on the edge in particular.
Yeah, no, we do. We certainly have to add a few more interior guys and some edge guys in particular. So that's going to be an area of focus for us. Certainly, like I said, building the offensive line, defensive line is a top priority for us. We certainly have a lot more work to do on that defensive line as well.
The quarterback room, how did you guys go about the process of weighing pros and cons of, understanding you guys have the number 1 overall pick? A lot of people are connecting you to quarterbacks in the draft, but looking at some of what was available out there, ultimately bringing in Brandon and Tim to compete with Will. How did that kind of play itself out?
Yeah, we went through, the options in free agency at quarterback, and, we felt good bringing Brandon in. He had experience with Brian in Cincinnati, knows the offense. He's been a really good backup in the league for a while. Young quarterback, and Will is still growing. And then bringing Tim in, too, he's been a quality backup in the league for years. Just going through the process, evaluating the free agent quarterbacks as well as the college quarterbacks, we felt good, making those moves we did.
Going to Cam's Pro Day and the Miami Pro Day, I know, kind of turns into the Cam Ward Pro Day for us, for people like us. But what were you able to learn in the private workout versus what you got in the Pro Day?
So our coaches are in control of the script at the Miami workout, which we went to and did very well there. But just doing the private workout, gives us the ability to maybe run some different, see some different throws, run some different routes for him to make completions. We, tweak little things like footwork and see how he responds to it. So that's the benefit really of having your coaches be involved in the workout, just wanting to see things that, from our standpoint, maybe we do in our offense, some footwork stuff that we wanted to see how he would respond to that, and he did a really good job.
What was one thing you learned about him from the coaching staff down there, whether it's Coach Cristobal or any of the support staff down there, that you maybe didn't know prior to getting down to Coral Gables and kind of learning more about him? I know you do your due diligence, obviously.
Yeah, just seeing him around his teammates at the Pro Day and seeing how they interact and respond to him, you can tell that everything you heard from him down there, that he is a leader, and you can kind of see that, you can feel that when he was running routes with the receivers, how they respond to him, and just the camaraderie that those guys had with him. I think is important to see that in person, and that's what I took from him.
I know he told you and Chad that he was solidifying it that day. I know you guys are obviously keeping your options open, or as much as you can at this point in time, and still have to go to the Colorado Pro Day, obviously, and the private workout there. For you and Chad in particular, what's been kind of the division of labor and how you've approached free agency versus the pre-draft process and contract negotiation versus fielding calls from other teams? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah, we work in tandem. There's a lot of things that during the day where, Chad takes off of my plate, where I can just, if it's watching free agency or if it's watching, draft meetings we're in, that he can kind of deal with, and allow me to continue to watch film. We're in all the decision making, whether it's contracts or, guys we're bringing in. It's very similar to really when I was in Kansas City. We had the same kind of setup really with our, people there in operations and administration and scouting. We all kind of work together. So, for me, I've known Chad for a long time, and so, we're a team at the end of the day, and we work well together. So it's been great.
So none of this is probably totally seamless, but for you, there's a level of comfort because of that familiarity that you talked about, that previous relationship that goes back a decade, I think you mentioned, and has allowed you to operate as best you can, even though it's still technically a new job, even though you've done all these jobs.
Well, I think it helped because we have a lot of same philosophies. I talked about that at my press conference, just in terms of how we evaluate players and how we build a team. I think the draft to develop and solidifying the offensive line, defensive line is a big priority for us. So I think it's helped because I've known Chad for a long time. We've always had a good working relationship, and then we have the same philosophies too, which helps.
The Snead trade that you and Chad were obviously a big part of, sounds like he's going to be, working through the rehabilitation process right now, and sounds like he's going to be at least ready for training camp, and understanding he has a management plan. How interested were you in continuing to work with L'Jarius as a part of this job, and what does he bring at his best?
Very interesting. We came to a point in Kansas City where we want to keep all the good players we want. We just couldn't.
Y'all got a few.
The salary cap restriction. So, I'm very excited to work with LJ again. What he brings to the table is, he's a competitive player in the field. He's long. He's able to play press. He's able to play zone. And just that, the last year in Kansas City, we traveled him with some of the best receivers in the league. So that's what I expect. We get him healthy here this year. That he can do, and I'm very excited to be able to work with him again.
I know Brian and Chad are not going to the Colorado Pro Day specifically. They're going to be a part of the private workout, obviously. But Denard, how important is it for Denard to be a part of the Pro Day process and kind of get eyes on Travis Hunter?
Yeah, I think that's important. I think certainly we've spent enough time with Travis. These workouts sometimes, certain positions you really want to hone in on. Quarterbacks to see them pro live, but for Travis, we've seen enough game film. We know he can do physical. The important part of the process with Travis is just meeting him, bring him in the building, and getting him up on the board and all that stuff. So we've accomplished that.
For all the different things that you've been asked a lot of the same questions basically since you took the job, what is the thing that people have over-fixated on that's kind of surprised you with the way that people have talked about you guys with the number one pick?
Over-fixated. That there's a lot of options on the table, so I don't know if it's over-fixated. I know people, you can stay if there's a quarterback there, and you're going to trade back. I get it. We're going through that whole process, so I don't know if they really fixated on anything. I expect that when you have the number one pick, and there's curiosity into what you're going to do for that pick, and I understand it.
Yeah. For the option of any potential trade that teams might approach you with, what would it cost to get to that spot this year in particular? I know no draft is built the same, and obviously there's been I think 13 times since the merger that the pick has been traded. What does that kind of look like this year?
I don't want to say like a particular cost on it, but if you have the number one pick, obviously they're trading up for the perceived best player in the draft. So we're going to expect a big haul for that draft pick if we do decide to do it. So that's our expectations. Yeah.
Mike, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Pretty easy.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
All right, that is Buck sitting down with Mike Borgonzi. However, he did it in what sounded like a crowded cafeteria with little kids running around. But we're able to make out a lot of Mike Borgonzi's answers. So I want to run people through, because some folks have commented on the audio. I want to run people through our text chain from yesterday in our little group chat for the show. So at 2 o'clock, Buck tells us he is heading back now to do the Mike Borgonzi interview. Robert replies and says, hopefully the audio is good. Buck at 2 p.m. Central Time yesterday says, I've got my mics. They did pretty well this morning. Fast forward to 2:45 p.m. Central Time. Buck Rising. Audio is less than ideal. So we were slightly prepared for it. But, hey, I was able to hear Mike Borgonzi talk about we need a pretty big haul to get off that number one overall pick. Clearly, they are still keeping their options open there, which they have messaged very publicly. But also talking about the sample size they already have on Travis Hunter, because the Titans are not sending the entire cavalry to Colorado's Pro Day, or as Deion Sanders labeled it, showcase, the way they did with Cam Ward. Does that mean anything? And if the Titans were to not draft Cam Ward with the number one overall pick, We've asked this question multiple times. People seem to ignore this question when they talk about any option other than picking Ward with the number 1 pick. Who would play quarterback for the Tennessee Titans in 2025? So, if they are to not draft Ward with the number 1 pick in the draft, what are their options? We'll talk about it next on 104.5 The Zone.
If you are dealing with ED, there's no reason to freak out about it. That is a natural thing that happens to guys as you age. Your body starts to change, and you just want to make sure that you have the right support system in place, because maybe you've gone online and taken some pills, and the pills were effective for a period of time, but that's not an effective way to continue to treat the problem for you as an individual. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about getting ED treatment, and the Tennessee Men's Clinic is there to debunk those for you. Lots of men assume that if the pills stop working, they have no other options than to seek out treatments like irreversible surgery. Do not go through extremes before you've talked to the experts at the Tennessee Men's Clinic, because they specialize in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do, and it makes them the experts in the field. They have access to multiple protocols and options to treat ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. So don't trust your health to an online pharmacy, and don't feel like you're out of options. We want you to understand all the options that you have available for you, because the Tennessee Men's Clinic is there with protocols that are patient-centered and customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone, ED, treatments that increase size, stamina, and everything else in between. So schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown location, or call them 615-208-9090.
So as NFL owners' meetings pretty much wrap up in West Palm Beach, we do have some headlines, as we know. The tush-push discussion has been tabled. The reformatting of playoff seeding in the NFL, that's been tabled. Overtime rules are changing. Both teams will get the ball in the 10-minute period. No longer one team receiving the opening kickoff in overtime, driving down the field, scoring a touchdown, and winning the game. Also, I'm reminded of how we did it even before that, Robert, where you could take the kickoff, just get to the 35-yard line and kick a field goal and win the game in overtime. Isn't that insane to think about now? We've come all the way to the point where both teams will get the ball, but we did have to have that in-between where we had to remove that rule of even if you just kick a field goal on that opening possession, you win.
Yeah, that was a dumb rule.
Terrible. So that is way in the rear view. And, of course, we have expanded replay assist where there can be an eye in the sky to pick up flags like roughing the passer, hitting players out of bounds, intentional grounding, face mask, things of that nature. And maybe most importantly, the NFL announced that Sony's Hawkeye technology will be used next season to electronically spot the football. Hopefully gone are the days of controversial or games being decided because of controversial spots in critical moments, which happens all the time. We've been calling for that for years. And it's also another chance for NFL coaches, GMs, owners to all be in the same place. One time, and naturally, discussions are going to take place with the NFL draft just over 3 weeks away. I saw this from Pat Leonard, who covers the New York Giants for NYDN Sports. He tweeted just this morning, Giants GM Joe Shane and Titans GM Mike Borgonzi were just out in the open here at the Breakers Hotel, having coffee and chatting for a bit. Titans picked number 1 in the NFL draft. The Giants picked number 3. What does it all mean? Joe Shane and Mike Borgonzi are having a conversation. They have to be talking about trading the number 1 pick. What else could it be?
They're both cat dads.
That probably is what it is.
Exchanging photos of their cats. Anytime that cats come up, I feel like, oh, yeah, I've got to show you a picture of my cat. Look at my boy Winston here. No, they're 100% talking about the pick.
So that prompts a lot of discussion about the number 1 overall pick and the question of just how much are the Giants pressing to try and trade up to number 1 after signing Russell Wilson, after signing Jameis Winston. Is that still a big part of their overall draft strategy to try and make a significant push for the number 1 overall pick? Is that a part of the Browns draft strategy? When you have Myles Garrett talking to ESPN Cleveland about what the Browns have laid out for him as far as their plan at the quarterback position, and then adjacent to that, he mentions how to go far, you have to have a young quarterback. A lot of questions about who, if anybody, will give the Titans the most intriguing offer for the number 1 overall pick. Clearly, their messaging has been keeping all options open, getting close to a decision. Everybody believes that the Titans are going to draft Cam Ward with the number 1 pick, but it's not because the Titans are leaking that out to people. A lot of times at this point in the process, we know that pretty much definitively, almost set in stone, that the team at number 1 is taking that quarterback. That's not the case right now. If that's what the Titans are doing, to their credit, they've been very tight-lipped about it. So that has you thinking about options. Let's say the Titans do get a ridiculous haul from the Giants or the Browns or anybody, and they do decide to move off the number 1 overall pick. They decide that they don't love Cam Ward enough to turn down X number of draft picks to move off of number 1. The question that keeps getting avoided in that discussion, because it's a discussion that comes up all the time, is who in the world would play quarterback for this team in 2025? So let's lay out the options here. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Titans say they're close to coming to a decision, and that means one of two things, right? They're posturing to keep everybody else in the dark, even if the decision is what everyone believes it'll be to draft Cam Ward, or it's true. And the Titans have yet to lock in their decision with the number 1 pick. And in that case, Robert, if it is Cam Ward, should it be concerning that it took them until 2 weeks before the draft to come to that conclusion?
I don't think so. I think if you're okay with them going through their process and you trust the decision makers, then you should be okay with how long it takes them to get there, right? They've known they've been on the clock ever since the season ended. I am okay with them working through a process, and that includes looking at Shedeur Sanders, looking at other prospects, looking at trading back. I want them to work through it. I feel like they would be doing themselves a disservice. It would be negligent not to look into every – if they just said, yep, drafting Cam Ward, we got less than 3 weeks to the draft, but you know what? What are we working for? Let's go ahead and move to the second round. Let's go ahead and look at some UDFA prospects. Like, no, they should work. This is the most critical decision they're going to make this entire draft. They should work through every option of it.
Well, they do have all the information on Ward, right? Like every touch point, as Mike Bergonzi calls them, regarding Cam Ward is done. The combine's done, the pro day, the private workout, the 30 visit, all of those things.
Well, Callahan noted they did have a couple more hours of Zoom. So okay. I don't know if that weighs into the equation.
So they'll still have time to spend with Cam Ward. And there's not medical information that the Titans are waiting on about him that we know of. Okay. So if their evaluation process of Cam Ward is, let's say, 99% complete, it does beg the question, what if it's not? What if it's not Cam Ward? What are the Titans' options? Naturally, there's only a few. Number one, Shedeur Sanders, which you would think would allow them to trade back and acquire picks while also getting their young quarterback. If they love Shedeur Sanders and they rate him higher than Cam Ward, we talked about it right from the jump in this pre-draft process. Shedeur Sanders, on paper, is a better fit in a Brian Callahan offense than Cam Ward, but Brian Callahan has talked at every turn about it being his job to make the player fit the scheme, make the scheme fit the player, not the other way around. But if they love Shedeur Sanders, maybe this is a part of their discussion internally. The idea of moving back to 2 or 3, getting the picks that you need, specifically that third rounder you don't have, and still getting your young quarterback. By the way, Ian Rappaport reported that Brian Callahan and Chad Brinker will not be present at the Colorado Pro Day, having seen Shedeur Sanders multiple times already. They were at the East-West Shrine Bowl. He didn't work out there, but they got a chance to spend a lot of time around him, although we know Sanders did not throw at the Combine. He will at his Pro Day. There will be a large contingent of Titans brass there, but the head coach and the president of football operations will not be there. Take that for what it's worth. They were present during Cam Ward's Pro Day in Miami. In fact, we have Brian Callahan talking about Shedeur Sanders here from yesterday at NFL owners meetings.
Our interactions with him have been really positive. We had him in for a 30 visit on top of it, and then we're heading out to his pro day. But I've really enjoyed him. I like his demeanor. I like the way he comes across. He's confident without being over the top, which is a good thing. But I've enjoyed it, and I wouldn't say that I know him as good as some of the people that that have worked with him for a long time. But all our interactions have been positive. I'm excited to see what he can bring.
So that's Brian Callahan talking about Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. All right. So option one, you still trade back and you pick Shedeur Sanders. You get your picks and you get your young quarterback at the top of the draft. Option two, a veteran quarterback that is currently not available, which, Bert, would boil down to Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr, right? Is there a single other quarterback that could even be looped into any scenario that we would just be making up on the spot in a trade with the Titans? A Saints trade up from 9 that includes Derek Carr, or a Falcons trade that includes Kirk Cousins?
Not that I see presently.
Okay. So a veteran quarterback that is not available that you would be trading for, getting picks and getting a veteran to help stabilize things through 2025. That's option 2. Option 3, you just draft a quarterback later. You love one of these guys. You love Tyler Shuck. You love, at this point, it does feel like Jackson Dart is going to be a first-round pick. But you love any one of these day 2 quarterbacks, and you're comfortable taking a swing on one of them. Maybe you're trading back, getting those picks, and taking a quarterback later on in the draft. Or option 4, it's somebody that's already on the roster. It's either Brandon Allen or Will Levis. And that would show a whole lot of faith by Chad Brinker in his owner, Amy Adams Strunk, buying into, quote, patience over panic, which has kind of been the company line for them this year. We know what the most likely scenario is. It's that the Titans draft Cam Ward. But of these 4, Robert, we put it to a poll too, at Lucas Panzica, where you can vote. if the Titans were to not draft Cam Ward number 1 overall, what to you would be the most likely scenario in terms of who plays quarterback for them this year? Shedeur Sanders, a veteran that they trade for, somebody already on the roster, or a quarterback that they take on day 2 or 3?
Out of those scenarios, we're excluding Cam Ward from this. So
excluding Cam Ward, the most likely scenario of the Titans starting quarterback situation if they were to not draft Cam Ward.
I would say it would be to trade for Kirk Cousins. I think he would be the cheapest to acquire. You have the cap space to do it. He would provide you with a bridge so you can find someone next year. Derek Carr, I think, would be dependent on you trading back from 1 to 9 with the Saints. But Kirk Cousins could be acquired even if you don't take Cam Ward and even if you don't trade back. If you stick and pick at 1, you could still acquire Kirk. That would be most likely to me if they don't take Cam Ward.
615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Right, because if you're trading back to get Shedeur Sanders, you have to really rate Shedeur Sanders above Cam Ward, which means you would have to be in the minority, right? The, at this point, microscopic minority that you're one of the people that believe Shedeur Sanders is a better prospect than Cam Ward. That does not seem likely to me, right? When the entire NFL is telling us, okay, at this point, the consensus feels like Shedeur Sanders is closer to Jackson Dart than he is Cam Ward. Is that fair? Even if that's not where he goes, he could go number 3 overall. Dart could go in the 20s or in the second round. But in terms of who they are as a prospect, that kind of feels like where we're at in the pre-draft process.
Sure. You would put them on a tier before you would put Cam Ward and Shedeur on the same tier. Yeah. I would agree with that.
Because it would be hard to reconcile with, well, we think Cam Ward's a better quarterback, but we really want those picks, so we'll settle for Shedeur Sanders. That feels like a hard scenario for Titans fans, at least, to buy into. So if they're going to trade back and pick Shedeur Sanders, then you would think it means they rate Shedeur Sanders higher than Cam Ward. I would say that's pretty unlikely. So I think I agree with you. Because I think even more unlikely than that is riding into 2025 with Brandon Allen and Will Levis as your options. If you're Brian Callahan and that's the situation going into 2025, at that point you might as well see yourself out, right? I mean, in what situation can you survive a 2025 with those two as your quarterback options?
That would seem like the quarterback version of what the Texans did with David Culley at head coach, where it's like, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and punt. We've got this guy who he's just going to worry about culture. He's just going to worry about teaching guys how to do the right things, and we'll figure this out next year. Like, that's what this feels like. This feels like the Texans' approach to head coach with Lovie Smith and David Culley, but with quarterback and Will Levis.
It'd be really hard not to feel that way if that was the approach. It would be really hard not to feel like Brian Callahan's just a lame duck head coach if they go into this with Will Levis and Brandon Allen battling to be QB1. For what it's worth, Jim Wyatt did talk to Brian Callahan about the quarterback moves they've made this offseason on TennesseeTitans.com. Callahan did share some thoughts on Brandon Allen, who he obviously worked with in Cincinnati when Allen was backing up Joe Burrow. This is from the article by Jim Wyatt. Callahan also paid veteran quarterback Brandon Allen a nice compliment while sharing his thoughts on some of the team's moves in free agency, saying it's too early to jump to conclusions as the team continues to evaluate Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and the other quarterbacks in this year's draft class. Quote, I don't think you can make that assumption, said Callahan about their potential draft plans. And I don't think people have enough respect for what Brandon Allen is. I think Brandon is a good quarterback. I think you watch him play, what he has done in his career. He's a guy that can play. He is a good quarterback. You are judging from a pool of guys in free agency that are all very similar one way or another, and everyone has opinions on who is better, this, that, or the other. Ultimately, Brandon has played 10 years for a reason. And that was on top of Jim's report talking to Chad Brinker that any reports to the effect of Titans shopping Will Levis have been shot down. Chad Brinker says they're not true. Levis is getting a chance to compete for the starting job. On one hand, that's something that I expect the Titans to say while Will Levis is still on the roster and they don't want to tip their hand about the number 1 pick. On the other hand, it is one of these 4 options as to who plays quarterback for the Titans if they don't draft one at number 1 overall. Bradford on the F&M Bank chat says, if the Titans don't draft a quarterback, they are accepting the fact that 2025 will yield a top 3 draft pick in 2026 and start Will Levis. Now, another reason why I have a really hard time thinking of that as an option that's even on the table for the Titans, starting somebody that's currently on the roster, is because I agree with Bradford that you'd be doing that, not because you believe in those guys to take a big leap, right? Brandon Allen is who he is. Callahan's right. He's been around 10 years for a reason, but 10 years as a very defined backup quarterback. And I believe we got our answer on Will Levis. But the thing that we do, Robert, when we say next year's class is better, I don't think that's a thing teams do, right? Like, teams are not looking ahead that much when all these quarterback prospects that are going to be in the 2026 draft haven't even played a snap of their final year of college football and saying, well, that class is shaping up to look pretty good, so why don't we just start Levis or Allen this year and we'll stick around, grab a top 3 pick when our roster's a little more filled out. That can't be a part of the thinking, right?
Yeah, I think they look ahead, but they're not willing to leverage future success against current success. No one's planning to come out here and there's going to be like 5 first-round quarterbacks next year in a much deeper class. Let's just try to poop the bed and we'll figure it out next year. That's just not the way stuff is handled.
So I will eliminate that option of Will Levis or Brandon Allen as this team's quarterback in 2025.
Well, I would say that they have a chance to start, but it would not be under the pretense that we are starting them to suck. If they start them, then they truly believe that is their best case for success. Whether that was drafting someone else at 1 or whatever the situation was, that is what they truly believed would be the best success. Now, I think that would be a deterrent from thinking they were intelligent people. But again, they know more than we do. They get to see what Will Levis looks like in the offseason. They get to know how he's feeling about the situation. So if that's what they decided was the best role, then you would have no choice but to trust them, even though I think that would be a dumb decision.
Yeah, and Callahan has talked this week about Will Levis going to the West Coast to work with QB coach, QB guru Jordan Palmer, working on some of the lower body stuff, some of the footwork stuff. But I'm with you. If that is the route, good luck selling tickets in 2025. But in terms of what's most likely for the Titans in a quarterback solution, if it's not Cam Ward with the number 1 pick, I think we would put Shedeur Sanders and trading for a veteran quarterback at the top of that list. But it seems like everybody around here assumes and hopes that it will be Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. And while that's likely, as long as the Titans continue to message that they're keeping all their options open, that they have not come to a final decision, we have to weigh all of those options as well. Draft is coming up in just over 3 weeks, and we'll have our final answer. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045. We'll wrap up the show and do some polls coming up next.
Murfreesboro golfers, it's time to say goodbye to pain and hello to a better game with Burrow Chiropractic's revolutionary stem wave therapy. Stem wave therapy is a non-invasive, cutting-edge treatment designed to help golfers get back on the course pain-free. This advanced therapy uses sound waves to target and repair damaged tissue, providing natural, long-lasting relief. At Burrow Chiropractic, their expert team is dedicated to offering personalized care that caters to each individual's unique needs. Stem wave therapy is perfect for treating chronic pain, inflammation, and even old injuries, allowing golfers to swing with confidence and ease. Plus, Burrow Chiropractic is proud to be the official chiropractic provider for Middle Tennessee athletics, ensuring their athletes stay in peak condition. Golfers can experience the benefits of stem wave therapy by visiting Burrow Chiropractic today. Call them at 615-410-7643. That's 615-410-7643, or check out their website at burrowchirotn.com.
Last call for phone call, 615-737-1045. Taking you right up to cover 2 with Blaine and Zach coming up at 1 o'clock until 3 HL after that. And then Robert and I will hold it down again tomorrow before Buck gets back from West Palm Beach on Thursday. So a lot discussed this week at NFL owners' meetings. And we will continue this discussion around the Titans' options with the number 1 overall pick, with the draft coming up in just over 3 weeks in Green Bay. Getting ready to do some polls and wrap up the show. But we did mention this earlier. Robert, you brought this to our attention. Something that a particular university is doing from your neck of the woods in North Carolina that caught your eye. What was this that you sent us yesterday?
Don't you put this terrible university in my state.
It is in your state.
They are in South Carolina.
They are in South Carolina,
They're in Myrtle Beach.
No, it feels like all the same.
Come on. What if I said that? Kentucky and Tennessee kind of feel like the same place.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, me neither. So the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina are offering a new rebate of sorts for season ticket holders. If you go to games this year, your concessions will be free. That includes pretzels, popcorn, hot dog, drinks, waters, whatever you can think of that they're allowing. But they're caveats. So when they put this out, they're like, yeah, you grab whatever you want. Come up here and grab whatever you want. But it doesn't work like that. You can get 4 at a time. You go up there and get you a drink, a bag of chips, a hot dog, and a pretzel. But see, I would be gaming the system before I tell you any more about it. I would be gaming the system. I would go up every time, give me 4 dogs, and get right back in line. If my football team is terrible, I'm just eating dogs all day. Dogs and beer is excluded, so you can't bring any beer.
Are they serving beer at Coastal? Obviously the SEC just started doing it a couple of years ago.
I believe so. Yeah, because I know East Carolina's doing it, State's doing it. So I would assume the selling beers at games situation is similar for North Carolina and South Carolina.
Did he see you do it when you were in school too?
Not when I was in school.
So it is
but only,
somewhat new.
Yeah, somewhat new. That's why they would shut our tailgating lots down like 30 minutes before the game because people would just be out there just chugging liquor bottles full trying to get their last little bit in. And now you don't have to worry about that. But so it's not everybody that goes to the game. Because you're in the game doesn't mean you get a free hot dog. You have to download an app and scan it, which is where it comes in. Their partner, Amamark, I believe, is the supplier. Aramark.
Oh, yeah. Supplier for a lot of programs.
They are the supplier for them, and they partnered together, created an app. So people have to download the app, scan it, and as long as you're scanning, you can grab your 4 items and merrily go about your way. So a partnership with Aramark, and it's definitely a good way to boost your ticket sales. They did something similar to this with basketball, I believe, where if you bought season tickets and the football team and the basketball team combined for over 35 wins, they would give you your money back this last year. Well, I think the football and basketball teams combined for 33 wins. So everybody that was like, who cares? We're going to get our money back anyway. We got a pretty good basketball team. They can cover the other half of the wins. No, they cannot. And you will owe me for season tickets this year. Either way, it's pretty cool. I would go to games. It wouldn't cost as much as people would think because the game's going on.
Yeah.
You don't want to miss the game. Unless it's a blowout, and then I'm like, take them for everything you got. Give me 4 sodas, 4 hot dogs, 4 popcorns, 4 pizzas, 4, give me 4 everything.
Because a lot of times the concessions, if you're a season ticket holder here in town, whether it's Preds, Titans, Nashville Soccer Club, and you go to every game, you're probably going to end up spending more on concessions than you do on your season tickets in a lot of cases, right? Especially if you have a family and you're buying snacks and drinks for the whole family and it's a long game. I find that concession prices, and this is only a conversation that we can have when Buck's not here because he's like, oh, what could a hot dog cost? $25? Right. But the problem is he's not far off, right? But to him, that's a reasonable price for a hot dog, where to us, that's insanity, but that's where we're at. So I put it to a poll at Lucas Panzico. What would you rather have at a sporting event, a free ticket or free concessions? And you would think that the ticket would win by a landslide, but it's a lot closer than you would think. We'll update the polls here in just a moment. But give me free concessions every time. Every time, because that's the part that sneaks up on you, right? You can spend $60 on a ticket to go watch any sporting event of your choosing, and you could easily spend $120 on the concessions while you're there. So a hat tip to Coastal Carolina, who has a pretty solid football program, right? Do they have a pretty decent fan base over there that can lean into this?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a college town almost. It's Myrtle Beach. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you're familiar with Myrtle Beach. It is the dirtiest.
Been there once.
It is the dirtiest, most
Myrtle.
redneck southern beach that you can think of, and I can say that because those are my people. But if you can imagine a dirty Myrtle Beach contingent football team, that's what Coastal Carolina is.
Tyler on the F&M Bank chat says he wishes he could get an email at the end of every season as a season ticket holder because you have to scan. Right, you have to scan on your phone to get this free concession item from Coastal. Tyler says, I wish you would get an email at the end like Spotify Wrapped. This season you ate 723 hot dogs.
That would be incredible.
Your stats on it.
See, I don't know. And I will say this. Tennessee games, I expected Tennessee football games to be harsher concession prices, and they were not. Very fulfilling. And
it's usually the pro sporting events where it's insanity.
They rake you over the coals. You got to have those pocket dogs. That's what I usually do, sneak a couple pocket dogs in. They don't pop up on your metal detector that way.
Oh, let's do some polls.
Robert Walsh.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
What in sports made you say, oh no, this week? Michael on Twitter chiming in with the start Tennessee had against Houston in the Elite Eight, realizing how Ziegler and Meshack were going to go out as Vols. Also, David Ferris chiming in with the Vol Twitter got catfished. Not worth our time. I don't know if you've seen anything about this. Vol Twitter was catfished and couldn't happen to a nicer group of people.
I've seen this scuttlebutt that some user on Twitter created this fake account, like a catfishing account that pretended to be a Vols fan, and Vol Twitter accepted it as one of their own, and then it turned out to be a catfish, and everybody's talking about it. I don't know. We'll let that one stay on the internet.
I will no longer stick my neck out for internet rumors. I will let them be what they will be. What are your expectations for Snead in 2025? Karen says last through at least 14 games. DJ says that he plays an entire game. And Jacob Scott says cornerback 1, period. How do you feel?
Yeah, cornerback 1, right? I mean, the expectation should be for him to be L'Jarius Sneed. An offseason to recover. He's still making the money that he's making. That might not be the expectation for some Titans fans. For some, it may be, please, just stay healthy for a season. But it should be, in my mind, to be cornerback 1, one of the best corners in the conference, if not the league.
What would you rather have at a sporting event, a free ticket or free concessions? Free ticket wins out with 58% of the vote, 41 going free concession. I think I would agree with them if it is a pro event. If it's a pro event, I'm going to take the ticket. I'll just eat at the tailgate before. I will be full, and then I will properly drown my sorrows afterwards. I'm not someone who needs to eat or drink at a game because I'm biting my nails the entire time, but that's just me.
It's definitely closer than I thought it would be.
And our final poll of the day, what would the Titans' best option be at quarterback if they don't draft Cam Ward? Actually, we have another poll after this. 38% saying trade back for Shador, 26% saying trade for a vet, 24% saying Will Levis / Brandon Allen, and 10% saying pick a quarterback on day 2 or 3.
Trade back for Shador, the most voted on option. I mean, Titans fans just want to see a young quarterback, man. Titans fans just want a beacon of hope. And I get it. I totally get it. So, in terms of the PR side of things, if you don't draft Cam Ward number 1 overall, it's going to be quite the week for us here on the radio show.
The final poll, do you like the change the NFL made to overtime where both teams get a possession? 91% in overwhelming fashion goes with yes, they do like the change to overtime, and I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah.
I think it gives both teams, it stretches it out, makes it not feel as one-sided. Like, remember the Baker Mayfield game this year where he's going, I believe it was the Chiefs, got him to overtime, got all the way down there. Oh, well, the Chiefs got the ball first, and it's over.
Yeah, no, this was a much-needed change, and I'm glad it is here, as well as the technology to help spot the football. That one's been a long time coming, too. Are those the polls?
That's the polls.
All right, that's the show. We'll be back at it, Robert and myself, tomorrow. Buck will be back in the fold on Thursday. But Blaine and Zach, cover 2, got you coming up next on 104.5 The Zone.